What is happening, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday's edition of the NBA Stokastic Deeper Dive Show. Big slate today, 11 games. We got a couple of teams kind of holding out everybody. Golden State Warriors, Los Angeles Lakers, neither of them playing any of their key guys. As a result, lots of value on this slate. We're about to break it down, myself and Adam. As you come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Adam, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Pretty interesting slate to talk about, I think. Normally when we get these 11 gamers, it's already like if somebody doesn't look really good, then you can kind of like just assume that at best they're a secondary option. And that's really the case today, since like you said, Golden State playing extremely shorthanded, Lakers playing extremely shorthanded. Obviously, there are some injuries elsewhere. Indiana could also be a skeleton crew by the time we get to that game. So, yeah, really interesting slate. And I think kind of similar to Monday where we had Memphis playing without anybody.
And the thing that's going to be funny about this being an 11-game slate is the majority of the teams I have zero interest in. And then there's going to be a lot of teams that you and I are just going to have to spend a bunch of time talking about and trying to parse out the different pieces because, like we said, Lakers, LeBron and AD are out. Warriors, Curry, Draymond, Wiggins, all out. And then we're going to get some other teams where just like, hey, all the guys are playing and there's not really much to talk about. But we're going to start here with the Los Angeles Clippers, who kind of have a weird situation because they are not resting the guys they normally rest. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are both playing, but Luke Kennard resting, John Wall resting, Marcus Morris is out, Norman Powell is out. Let's start with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Neither of them have played for a little bit. What are you expecting from them from a minutes perspective?
So I'm expecting that we get around 28 minutes from Kawhi again. Both of these guys played about 28 minutes in their last game. I think it's likely that you get a little bit more playing time from Paul George and that Kawhi kind of just stays there, just because obviously Kawhi's had much more extensive injury issues and has struggled with them all season long to this point. So I expect them to sort of ramp up Paul George quicker than they do Kawhi. So I would expect you're getting like 30, 32 minutes from George, 28 from Kawhi.
Yeah, and let me look through because I also recall that typically being the case with Paul George. And if you look at earlier this year, he missed a game, came back, played 31 minutes. Last game played 28. And then also last year, he had, you don't typically see this. Paul George had a layoff of 3 months last year. And the first game back, he played 31 minutes after a 3-month layoff. So I do think that really does speak to what you were just saying there in terms of Paul George. He is a layoff. They're typically pretty close to bring him back. Also, there was another time last year, missed time, came back 40 minutes his first game back. So seems like he is a little bit more of a leash. Certainly, Kawhi Leonard, it's really hard to know what to expect from him going forward. I think they're going to be extremely cautious with him. Going to be difficult to trust him in tournaments really for the foreseeable future. But does Paul George play enough to where you'd want to play him in tournaments?
I think it's pretty tough to get to him outside of just, a lineup here or there if you're playing a lot of them. He's 9K on DraftKings. I believe he's 8,300 on FanDuel, so a more appealing price tag there. I'd be more interested if it were a different slate, but with it being this slate, it's just there's so many good options that I don't think he really stands out, especially on DraftKings. Again, he looks a little bit better on FanDuel, and that's doubly true for Kawhi Leonard, who 7,200 on DraftKings isn't particularly interesting, assuming that he is going to continue to play around 28 minutes, but he's only 5,800 on FanDuel, so he's underpriced, I think, there.
So with that in mind, Kawhi Leonard, how much of a priority could he potentially be on FanDuel? Like we don't know his minutes. We don't know his minutes restriction exactly. It's a favorable matchup against the Magic, but the price is cheap enough. Let me see. What is his current ownership at? We have Kawhi projected for 32% ownership on FanDuel. Is that a mark that you feel like you'd prefer to be over or underweight to in tournaments?
Probably would be a little bit under. I think that it's like, I think he's a good play, but I think he's going a little bit over-owned. We have him with a 19% chance of being optimal. But also the thing that concerns me there is normally when you talk about players, like you're talking about there's volatility in their actual production, and typically there's some level of volatility in their playing time also, because if somebody averages 36 minutes, there's still going to be times they play 38, 39. Whereas with somebody like Kawhi, there's some chance he plays more than 28, but I think it's more likely that his range of outcomes kind of skews towards like the negative. Like he's either going to play 28 or fewer, as opposed to saying he's going to play 26 to 32 or something like that, 26 to 30. So that's kind of my concern when he's getting ownership is you can only do so much in 28 minutes. And if you agree that there's a low chance he plays more than 28 minutes, it's kind of like, all right, well, 1/3 of the field is playing this guy, and how much damage can he really do?
I'd say the other concern I have about with Kawhi Leonard also is that he hasn't played well when he's been on the court this year, and he's had, long injury history, the long layoff. I think it's reasonable to assume he's going to be better going forward. But I also think it's reasonable to think he's going to take a pretty big step back from where he's been in previous years. Long injury history. Now he is what, 33, 32, 30, 31 Kawhi Leonard. So I do have concerns just how effective he's going to be on a points per minute basis. He hasn't scored over 30 fantasy points in a single game this year. I would tend to want to be underweight to him just because it's a lot of volatility and he's popular. Anything else that you like from the Clippers?
Not really. Like Reggie Jackson should play more minutes with John Wall out, but the production isn't likely to really increase since he is playing most of those minutes with Paul George or Kawhi. And then also you just have guard spots that are just kind of locked in tonight. I mean, not that like any one player is ever a lock in tournaments, but you have Russell Westbrook as a guard. You have Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson as guards. You have, numerous other good guard plays. So nothing really for me.
And then let's talk about the Orlando side of the game, where constantly there's been some guys in and out of the lineup. The players who are officially out for them: Chuma Okeke, Jalen Suggs, Wendell Carter Jr., Gary Harris. Not new injuries. These are guys who have been out. Mo Bamba returns from an absence, not on the injury list today. The Magic have been a team that's fairly difficult to parse. I'm kind of high on Markelle Fultz going forward, though. He is only $5,000 over on FanDuel. DraftKings, he's $5,200. And I'm kind of confused why he's chalky on FanDuel. I think that makes sense. But why he's not on DraftKings at $5,200 and why he's only 4% owned, because Markelle Fultz, for all of the concerns and all of the different, shooting issues and different mental issues he's had over the course he's been in the NBA, he's been a pretty good points per minute fantasy producer. And it doesn't look like there's any real minutes concerns here. He played 32 minutes last game. And if you look at the 4 games he's played, he had 2 games where he played limited minutes, but they were both blowouts. One of the games was against Toronto. It was a one-sided game. He only played 19 minutes. The other one, he played 17 minutes. His first game back, also blowout against the Hawks. 2 competitive games, 30 and 32 minutes. I think we're probably getting over 30 minutes from Markelle Fultz. That makes him somebody who's way under owned to me on DraftKings.
Yeah, so I think the easy answer to me is that ownership ends up being wrong and that he's higher owned. He's been higher owned all day. Like when I did the tournament plays video earlier, I think he was 12 or 13% on DraftKings. I know I mentioned him on both DraftKings and FanDuel, but the other kind of dead giveaway to me is that we still have him with an 18% chance of being optimal, and people just aren't that bad at DFS. If somebody's 18% to be optimal and they're projected for 4% ownership, they're going to be higher than 4% owned. So I think that it's probably just like a glitch somewhere where we've had his ownership higher all day and then now it just fell off for whatever reason. But yeah, I think he comes in higher owned. I think he should come in higher owned for all the reasons you said. He's been about a fantasy point per minute guy so far this year since returning from injury. Since last year, he's been between 1.1 and 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. Clearly, for the minutes last year, he wasn't sharing the floor with Banchero, but you're talking about somebody that at least should be viewed as a fantasy point per minute guy going forward. We have recent games of 28 to 29 minutes and about 32 minutes. So it doesn't appear there's any real minutes restriction on him. I think he clearly to me looks like the best option from Orlando.
And also just as an add-on from a betting angle for everybody, his over-under for assists today is 4.5. Last year, he averaged 5.5 assists in 20 minutes per game. I feel pretty good in saying that long-term, Markelle Fultz is going to average well over 4.5 assists per game. And that's just way too low of a prop line for him. So I did bet the over on that this morning. Anything else that really stands out to you from Orlando?
No, that's really it. Mo Bamba is not on the injury report, so I'm assuming he's going to be back into the starting lineup, which would move Mo Wagner back to the bench. Wagner's been really good as a starter. He was really useful for me on Monday as far as getting second place, but going back to the bench, obviously not going to be looking to pay $5,300 for him. If you get the Paolo Banchero, that's clearly fine, but that's going to be the case for a lot of guys today. The only guy I really think is mispriced on Orlando is Fultz.
So let's move on to the next game, the Atlanta Hawks against the New York Knicks. And always a little bit of a fun rivalry dating back to a couple years ago. The Hawks played the Knicks in the playoffs, and Knicks fans thought they were getting under the skin of Trae Young, and then Trae Young just absolutely kicked their ass. But Trae Young's been struggling a little bit, particularly as of late, and it's led to conversations where people are on Twitter saying like, all right, would you rather have Trae Young long-term? Would you rather have Tyrese Halliburton? People kind of trying to figure out who the worst player is that they would take over Trae Young. I do think some of the response has been a little bit of an overreaction, but also now we've seen Trae Young with a little bit of a decrease in price tag. He is, well, not really that much of a decrease, at least on DraftKings at $10,100, but $9,700 on FanDuel, I do feel is a little bit cheap for Trae Young. He's a pay up option I like today.
Yeah, so do I. There's a lot. So like that's sort of the issue is we're going to get to other guys in his price range that I also like, but 10-1 for him I think is still reasonable. It's not the same, it's more expensive than he was the other day when he was 30% owned and really disappointed, but still, about a 1.35 fantasy point per minute guy, plenty of value on this slate. One thing working against him is, sort of what I mentioned earlier. There are good forward plays today, good center plays, but when you think about the best plays on this slate, I kind of just think of nothing but guards. And so that's a little bit problematic just because it makes the opportunity cost for these other guards a bit higher because either you really can only play one of them, or it means you're not playing one of Westbrook, Thompson, Poole, and that's kind of tough. So that's sort of the issue for Young, but I do think if you can get there, he looks like a good play. I was just crunching lineups right now. I haven't sorted them yet, so I don't know yet like what it would look like if the slate started right now. But he did show up in about 8% of my crunches, which is basically in line with his ownership.
And then as for the other players on the Hawks, kind of hard to get behind any of them. So we've talked a lot, you and I, about DeJounte Murray and how he's taken a little bit of a step back in terms of his production playing alongside Trae Young as of late. We saw one big game from Murray lately, but that was a game that Trae Young was out. Beyond that, he's really played second fiddle to Trae. And then as for the other role players, we got Bogdan Bogdanovic back in the picture now. That also muddles things up a little bit. He's still playing restricted minutes, but even so, 22 to 24 minutes from Bogdanovic, that's usage and playing time that's coming away from other guys. So Jalen Johnson has been really popular lately. Is anything standing out to you outside of Trae Young from the Hawks?
No, he's pretty much all that stands out. I think Clint Capella is kind of interesting in tournaments as well. He's getting 7% ownership. There are a lot of very similar looking center plays today. I don't think he's any sort of a real priority, but wouldn't mind going there. One thing I do want to touch on kind of quickly, going back to the other side real quick, we just had that conversation about Fultz where, I mentioned the gap between optimal percentage and ownership. After looking at just sort of how my crunches in Fantasy Cruncher looked, I think it might actually be going the other direction where the ownership is actually kind of correct and the optimal percentage is going to come down. I wasn't using a lot of randomness for this set of crunches. I just wanted to see how things were looking. Fultz only showed up in like 4% of the lineups that I made. So I think it might on DraftKings just be a case where just the way that salaries work out, Fultz doesn't actually end up being that appealing. So maybe we actually see the optimal percentage come down and the ownership is actually low.
Yeah, we'll see. If he is 4%, I do suspect I'm going to be overweight to him just based on how I've been projecting Markelle Fultz a little bit higher than other people in general. But getting back to the Hawks, just to reiterate the question, anything outside of Trae Young or Clint Capella that does stand out?
No, Jalen Johnson's cheap, but not very good when Trae Young's on the floor. But more importantly, it's just there's plays that just look so much better today.
I don't even know if Jalen Johnson projected poorly on a points per minute basis. It's just there's guys who project a lot better on the cheap end, and also guys who are cheaper than him that project better. So that's something that I think the opportunity cost of playing him is just going to come at the expense of other options. So probably not somebody I'm going to really be getting to. On the Knicks side of the game now, a team that's been a little bit spread out and deeper over the course of the year, although it's been a little bit less of the case lately, particularly with Mitchell Robinson at center. We've seen some monster games from Mitchell Robinson as of late. There was the one game where he struggled, trying to pull up his box scores right now. But outside of that, I think he had recent games where he had, here it is. Yes, we had the one game against Dallas was a blowout where he struggled, but the other recent games from 34 minutes against the Cavs, he played 33 minutes against the Bucks. He had a game where he played 26 against the Pistons. That was a 30-point blowout. And if you're going to get minutes well over 30 for Mitchell Robinson, I think he's potential to do some damage. So Mitchell Robinson today is somebody else who I expect that I'm going to have in the mix. He's $5,800 over on DraftKings, and he's projected for 15% ownership there. DK 8% ownership. So he's picking up some steam, but I think it's mostly warranted.
Yeah, he's another one, though, where I think he's kind of dropped off during the day. This morning, he was getting a lot of ownership. Now on DraftKings, he's at 9%. And I think a big reason for that is Anthony Davis being ruled out. So and Wenyen Gabriel still being out. So, like, I assume that Thomas Bryant's going to start for the Lakers at 3,100 and kind of just take up a center spot. And it makes it so we already had a lot of good centers. now it's even more competitive because they're kind of competing for one spot, and it's not even really one spot because you also have all those guards that look really good. So Mitchell Robinson's another one where, this morning I thought looked great. Now he's showing up in like 5-6% of my crunches. Might end up with a little bit more than that in terms of what I actually play, but it's become a lot more difficult to get to him, I think.
And then any of these other guys on the Knicks that you'd view as priorities, because I do think there are guys that are underpriced. I think Jalen Brunson's a little bit too cheap. I think Julius Randle's a little bit too cheap. The matchup is good against the Hawks. This is a pace up spot. It's supposed to be a really high scoring game. The total is 232.5 in this spot. So I think there's reason to think there's upside, but it's hard for me to get well overweight to any of these guys just because of how many options we have on the slate. But of these guys on the Knicks, like Brunson, Randle, Barrett, are any of them you consider priorities?
I think they're all good plays. I think they're all just getting a little bit more ownership than they probably should, because, like you said, there are so many options on this slate. And I thought that was the case this morning. Like we had, Jalen Brunson pulling, I think it was around 20% ownership this morning. Now we have him at 15%. I get why he's pulling ownership, but like there's just a lot of guys in that range, whether, we haven't talked about yet, whether it's Drew Holiday, whether, Josh Giddey, like there's other guys that maybe they don't look quite as good as Brunson, but they don't look like, 3-1 or 4-1 dogs either. So it's a spot where I think he looks good, but there's such strong chalk elsewhere today on the Lakers and on the Warriors. I expect that I sort of get away from the field on the Jalen Brunson type spots.
And are there any role players you like from the Knicks tonight?
Not particularly. I expect Quentin Grimes to continue to play a lot, but I don't think this is really the slate for it. Same goes for Emmanuel Quickly.
Just because he came up on the show and you are together, it's obligatory. I mentioned Jimmy Butler is questionable for tomorrow for conditioning. He doesn't play. Like, what does he need to rest for? Prayer for? He doesn't play basketball anymore hardly.
Well, yeah, and he just played like a bunch of minutes. So and then took a day off. So what isn't conditioned?
It's just soft. His heart. He needs he needs a new heart. He needs a new mind. Everything's off. Anything else you want to mention from this game? Or are we good to move on?
No, I'm good to move on.
Okay, so let's shout out our sponsor of the day. That is No House Advantage. If you guys haven't signed up at NHA, there's a couple reasons to do so. First, if you click on our link, you're getting up to a $50 bonus on your first deposit. And then once you're over at NHA, you're going to find contests with a lot of overlay that you're not going to find on FanDuel. You're not going to find on DraftKings. NHA contests that are regularly filling halfway, a third of the way. It's free money that you're not going to find anywhere else in the industry right now. But also, if you are in a state that does not have legal sports betting, No House Advantage has props that you can play against the house. So it's a way that you could use the projections we have over at Stokastic.com or different player prop projections and play them on No House Advantage. So check that out. But when you do sign up, make sure to click on our link so you get that deposit bonus when you first sign up. Now let's start talking about the real value spots, Adam. And this is one of the most important ones of the day. The Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James out, Anthony Davis out, Patrick Beverley is doubtful to play today. So let's start by talking about the impact of Anthony Davis being out, because I'm on the same page as you. I think that Thomas Bryant is going to move into the starting lineup. How close is he to an all-in type play today?
So I just figured out, like, if the slate started right now with current ownership and everything, Thomas Bryant would be my highest owned guy on DraftKings. He'd be in 149 of my 150 lineups. The one where he isn't, obviously, is just sort of a random thing. But the thing with Thomas Bryant, he's not very good defensively, and that's why, he kind of is a backup center. But he's a good offensive player. He can space the floor a bit. He's a good fantasy producer. So far this year, he's played 118 minutes. He's averaged 1.18 DraftKings points per minute. I think that he's just a really, really good option. When you're trying to think of like ways that you wouldn't want him, it's more likely that he puts up it's probably a situation where like he actually puts up a good point per dollar score, but just gets smashed by a couple of other centers. Like, Thomas Bryant goes for 27 DraftKings points, but Mitchell Robinson goes for 50 and Steven Adams goes for 45 or something like that. And the savings just ends up not really being worth it. But more often than not, I think Thomas Bryant's just going to be one of the best values.
And then one thing I should mention here, because I know people are probably, at least some people are going to look at the box score and say, oh, well, the last time Thomas Bryant started, he only played 18 minutes and had a kind of mediocre fantasy result. Here's what's different about this game versus that game. Wenyen Gabriel is also out, and Gabriel split center minutes with Bryant that time. With Gabriel also out, I assume Damian Jones comes into the rotation, but we saw AD get hurt. Well, not hurt, but left with the sickness fairly early last night. We got 28 minutes out of Thomas Bryant. That makes me feel pretty good about projecting him for a heavy amount of minutes. So I think Thomas Bryant is definitely the best value play on the slate. But I did want to ask you, just because I brought him up right there, do you view Damian Jones as somebody who could potentially step into those Wenyen Gabriel minutes and be a really low owned tournament play that could potentially serve as a pivot off of Thomas Bryant?
I think Damian Jones could step into that role and screw up the Thomas Bryant play more so than I think Damian Jones is somebody that I want to mess with in tournaments, because I think of it more like Thomas Bryant's a good point per minute guy. Damian Jones is fine, but he's not on the same level as Thomas Bryant. Damian Jones is more, if he were to get, 22, 24 minutes, you're probably getting like 20 fantasy points, which unless this slate goes really off the rails, you're not going to want. Thomas Bryant, he's very likely to be somebody you need to have. But if Damian Jones were to step into more minutes, then it could be problematic. So I think it's more Damian Jones is a concern to Thomas Bryant more so than I actually want to play Damian Jones.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what I agree with as well. If this was a smaller slate, I would feel differently. I would be playing Damian Jones if this was a 3-game slate. On an 11-game slate, I think it's unnecessary to get exposure to him. And there's also other plays that are going to make sense from the Lakers because, like we said, in addition to Anthony Davis being out, Patrick Beverley isn't expected to play. LeBron has been ruled out. What does it do to the backcourt and guys like Russell Westbrook and Dennis Schroeder?
It makes them look better, that's for sure. Especially, Westbrook. Schroeder has certainly struggled this year, but a lot of that's been because he's playing with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You take those guys off, and he should do better. But so far this year, 111 minutes for Westbrook without Davis or LeBron on the floor, 1.3 DraftKings points per minute, 32% usage rate, 38.5% assist percentage. Schroeder has only played 34 minutes without them, 0.87 DraftKings points per minute. I still expect him to play second fiddle to Russell Westbrook whenever they're on the floor together. But Westbrook to me is the one that really stands out. If the slate started right now, Westbrook would be my second highest owned guy. Schroeder, so I would have like 80% Westbrook, Schroeder coming in closer to 20%.
Do you think Westbrook is going to start today?
That I think is a really good question. And I've thought about it a couple of times today and was kind of thinking about it as I was talking. I really have no idea. It would obviously make sense, especially because Beverly is doubtful as well. But they also very easily could just go Schroeder, Walker, Brown, Reeves, Bryant, or something like that. I think it's more likely they do that.
I've been a little hesitant to give Westbrook really big minutes, just because he's played surprisingly well off the bench for the Lakers this year, and it was a role that I didn't even think that he'd be willing to take on. But he's taken it on. And he's been pretty serviceable in it. And when we've seen the Lakers shorthanded in other spots, they've still opted to leave Russell Westbrook in a bench role. And I just think that's a reality that we should consider, that Russell Westbrook is not a lock to start today. He has not started a game since October 23rd against the Portland Trailblazers. He struggled. The Lakers took him out of the starting lineup. Hasn't started since. If Russell Westbrook does not start and he comes off the bench, how would you view him in tournaments?
So, like right now, I have him at 31 minutes. I'm pretty comfortable. I think that's sort of where you're expecting him off the bench. If he started, I think he'd play even more. So, he's still one of my favorite plays coming off the bench. I still expect him to close.
Yeah, I agree. I expect him to close, but I would definitely be a little more conservative with his minutes if he comes off the bench. And Dennis Schroeder, I think, is a really strong play. Lonnie Walker, also a strong play. Anything else from the Lakers that you do really like, or anybody that's picking up ownership that you don't like?
Yeah, so I mean, Westbrook, again, I think looks really good. Thomas Bryant looks great. The rest of the guys, pulling basically 10 to 20% ownership, that all makes sense to me as well. You have a $3,200 Troy Brown, Dennis Schroeder at 4,100. We've already talked about Lonnie Walker at 4,600. I expect to play north of 30 minutes. He's another reasonable value option that's showing up a bit for me. So I think Bryant and Westbrook are the priorities. I think that Brown, Schroeder, Walker are reasonable plays. Austin Reeves, I think, a step behind them. Like he probably sees an increase in playing time here. He's just not a very good point per minute guy, and doesn't have the same sort of like offensive potential as somebody like Dennis Schroeder. So I think he's behind them as somebody where like on a smaller slate he would look a lot better, but here it's kind of an afterthought.
Any contrarian plays we should be considering from the Lakers for tonight?
Just keep an eye on the starting lineup. If you got Damian Jones starting ahead of Thomas Bryant, that would obviously be a really bad sign for Bryant. If Kendrick Nunn gets thrown into the starting lineup, I'm not expecting that, but it's possible. He's 3K flat. I still wouldn't feel that he's safe, but he would certainly be somebody you could take shots on if he is starting, because he would at least be getting first crack at playing well and staying on the floor.
Let's move on to the Toronto Raptors. And it's hard to not have some concern about a blowout in this spot. Raptors now favored by 12.5 points. And the Lakers do not seem the most motivated to win this game, considering that LeBron and AD are out. Kind of makes it seem like this game is somewhat of a punt. From the Toronto Raptors side of the game, this should be a really easy matchup because the Lakers defense has been decent this year, but a lot of this because Anthony Davis is like a 96th percentile defensive player, something like that over at EPM this year. He's been really, really good, Anthony Davis, arguably the best year of his career. With him out, good matchup for the Raptors. Are there any Raptors that you're going to be prioritizing?
Yeah, so I think Pascal Siakam looks great. We got 38, 39 minutes from him last game. Good to see him finally get that. You had seen that he was trending towards like 36 or 37 in recent games, and then finally got there. He's been great this year. Still has power forward eligibility on DraftKings as well at 9,800. Projected for 20% ownership. If the slate started right now, I would have a hell of a lot more than that. Scotty Barnes looks good also. I think that I'm more in line with the field on him at 7,300. We have seen his playing time trend up recently. Played 41 minutes in his last game. He's been about a fantasy point per minute guy in the games he's played with Siakam and Van Vliet active this year. Obviously a good spot for him. OG Anunoby and Fred Van Vliet seem kind of interesting to me just as contrarian pieces in tournaments. Nothing that I really think I'm getting a lot of, but in an individual lineup, if you wanted to, for example, use Van Vliet as a pivot away from Jalen Brunson, I think that's fine. If you wanted to use OG as a pivot away from even Scotty Barnes, that's fine, because I do expect that on average you get an extra minute or two from OG, and I don't think that Barnes should be twice the ownership, but Barnes does, project a little bit better, so I'm just getting him a little bit more.
Does the chance of a blowout impact any of your decision-making process on the Raptors players as you're building lineups?
Not really. I mean, I think you can take a minute off their projections, but if you're going to go from 38 minutes to 37 or something on Siakam, he's still going to look good. Same for the rest of those guys.
And then safe to assume no interest in any of the role players / value guys from Toronto?
Yeah, no interest there.
All right, let's move on to the Charlotte Hornets against the Brooklyn Nets. Now, the Hornets injury report, nobody knew on it, but it's just always loaded with players. Just for whatever reason, nobody's ankles are safe in Charlotte. Dennis Smith Jr., ankle injury. He's out, been out for a while. LaMelo Ball, ankle injury, 2 of them this year. He's once again been out for a while. Gordon Hayward, just perpetually hurt. Cody Martin, he's hurt. Mark Williams, also hurt. Ankle injury, shocker. So when it comes to the Charlotte Hornets, a lot of guys are out, but it's guys who have been out for a while, so prices have kind of acclimated to it at this point. But is there any pricing value left on the Hornets guys?
Not really. I don't think that they're overpriced. I just think that they're pretty much correctly priced to where they don't stand out on a slate like tonight. Kelly Oubre pulling the most ownership on DraftKings at 13%, 6,800. He has played huge minutes recently, played 39 a couple of games ago, played 40 last game. He's been a fantasy point per minute guy without LaMelo or Hayward on the floor. So still looks good. Same can be said for Terry Rozier, who should play into the upper 30s. He's also been a fantasy point per minute guy. We've seen more playing time for PJ Washington of late, typically getting 33, 34 minutes when he avoids foul trouble. He's just shy of a fantasy point per minute. Plumlee's about a fantasy point per minute, playing around 30 minutes. So like all of these guys look good at their respective salaries. I think Oubre and Rozier look the best. They also have the best positional flexibility on DraftKings with shooting guard and small forward. But again, they're just guys that on a lot of slates, you would be talking about, Hornets across the board getting 15, 20% ownership. But on this one, just because you have teams resting everybody, they get pushed down the list a bit.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. On a slate of this size with as much value, there's just no real need to go there. If guys were to pop up here and there, if you guys were playing 150 lineups, if you had a couple shares of an Oubre or Rozier, cool, but it's hard to prioritize anything. And then from the net side of the game, it's kind of a lot of the same, especially for whatever reason, Durant's price stayed high for a very long time. And now over on FanDuel, at least, it's starting to come down. He's still 10-7 on DraftKings. FanDuel at 10-1. I think we could finally start talking about playing Kevin Durant, though. So the FanDuel price point, a lot more favorable than the DraftKings one. But I think this is the first time in a really long time that I'm going to have any kind of exposure to Durant.
Yeah, and I'm getting to him on DraftKings as well. We have him projected for 10% ownership. I got to around 16 in the crunch I just did. And I think the reason goes back to what I've already mentioned a couple of times. The opportunity cost at the center positions and the guard spots, I think, are just higher tonight than at forward. So it makes it really easy to just pay up for Durant because you do have value and you're not foregoing options that are quite as good when you go there. So Durant in 20 games since the start of last year, where Ben Simmons and James Harden have been out and Kyrie has been in. He's averaged 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. You're likely to get 37, 38 minutes tonight. So I agree with you. He looks better on FanDuel at 10-1, but even at 10-7 on DraftKings, this is the first time in a while where Durant's showing up for me.
And then the other one too, Kyrie still has, at least in my opinion, a lot of upside. I know this has been a super weird year for him for a number of reasons on and off the basketball court, but he's $8,500 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Kyrie Irving is 8,000 flat. 8K is such a cheap price for Kyrie Irving. There's so much upside in him at that kind of salary. It's a really good matchup against Charlotte. I think Kyrie's a really good tournament play today. I understand the guard position is loaded, but it's hard for me to pass up Kyrie, particularly on FanDuel where he's 8K.
Yeah, I'm there with you. And right now, I'm not getting much of him, which makes me even more confident that it's finally going to be the Kyrie game. I would be very happy if I start to get to more. But at the same time, it goes back to what you just said about him being difficult to get to. Like, I'm looking at the guards that I'm getting to the most, and it's Westbrook, Poole, Morant, Halliburton if he's in. And then obviously if he's out, it's some combination of Nembhard and McConnell. Schroeder, Drew Holiday, Russell, Jackson, Brunson, like all guys that I'm perfectly happy playing. So if some of that does start to turn into Kyrie Irving, I'm more than happy because I do think he benefits with Ben Simmons out. We've seen him not really shoot well and average about a fantasy point per minute. I think that goes up over a larger sample, but there's going to be some guards that I like that I just don't get to here. And right now he's one of them. Again, hopefully, or I'm kind of just hoping that changes a bit because I do agree that he's a good play.
Yeah, and by the way, because somebody made a funny point in the chat. It was 1-2 said who is playing Kyrie for stocks. Yeah, the one ceiling game we saw from Kyrie this year, he had like 4 blocks in the first quarter. I think I remember that being the case. It was the game. Where is it? Yeah, game against Dallas. He had 4 blocks and 3 steals in that game, and I'm pretty sure he had all 4 of those blocks in the first quarter. At least he had 3 of them in the first quarter, and that is just one of a couple of games where he had multiple blocks this year. So that he had that one weird outlier game. He's going to end up scoring eventually. He's too talented not to.
Yeah, agreed. The opportunities have been there, just hasn't done well.
Any of the role players on the Nets do you like at all?
Role players, no. I do like Claxton. I think he's still a little bit underpriced, but he's another one where I really liked him this morning. He was getting a ton of ownership. Now he's getting less ownership, and I don't have as much because, again, I'm just allocating so much of my center exposure to Thomas Bryant. But as far as non-Thomas Bryant centers, I do think Claxton looks like one of the best, playing huge minutes without Ben Simmons.
Let's talk about your Washington Wizards next. And we got Bradley Beal out again. And with him out, I think we could expect a lot of usage to go to Kristaps Porzingis and Kyle Kuzma, as is. Porzingis is low-key had a pretty monster fantasy year, and he's somebody who hasn't really gotten talked about, but he's been much improved with the Wizards than he was when he was with Dallas. So Kristaps Porzingis, Kyle Kuzma, I expect both of these guys to see a big uptick in usage. I think Kyle Kuzma should also see more assists going his way. That's something we've seen more out of him this year. Monty Morris, another guy that should play an expanded role. But considering all the options we have on this slate, do you really like any of the Wizards compared to those other options we have tonight?
No, that's sort of the problem. I think Porzingis looks better. I think Kuzma looks better, certainly than they would if Beal were in. But on DraftKings, you have a $9,200 Porzingis with only center eligibility. I am getting to more Siakam than him by a lot. If ownership were to change a bit, then maybe I get to more Siakam, or to more Porzingis rather. But Siakam's already getting more ownership, so I don't really think that's it. I think it's just the difference in projection. But without Beal on the floor this year, Porzingis has averaged 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. He's got about a 30% usage rate. Kuzma's averaged 1.13 DraftKings points per minute with a 30% usage rate, 17.8% assist percentage for Kuzma. Both of these guys I think look good. It's just, again, there's so many good plays on the slate. Some are going to sort of fall through the cracks, but I think both Kuzma and Porzingis look like good plays if you can get to them.
Yeah, one thing about Porzingis is because he's already been so good this year, the price is kind of there, right? He's $9,200 on DraftKings, a little more favorable on FanDuel at $8,900. He also brings the defensive stat upside, but 27% ownership looks a little bit much for me on FanDuel, where he is one of the most popular players on the slate. Actually, of all players that are center eligible on DK today, Porzingis is or on FanDuel, I should say. Porzingis is most popular at 27%. What do you think of him at that kind of ownership on FanDuel? Because 27% is pretty hefty when he's 8,900.
Yeah, he has power forward eligibility too, though. So I think that really opens up a lot and makes him just look like a lot better play on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings.
Noah Levinson left us a super chat. He said, what position is most optimal utility DraftKings? It does not matter.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's typically, especially tonight, going to end up being either a guard or a center. but that's not because of their position. It's just that's how it's going to work out.
Yeah, if you're building lineups, say Fantasy Crunch, or you're just looking at projections, you should be caring a lot more about the points per dollar and the value on players than what position they are. So a lot of times when Adam and I are talking about positions and opportunity costs, we're talking about like what positions, if point guard has a ton of value, for instance, then we're probably just more likely to spend up at the forward or center spots. But the position itself isn't important in the utility. But like once you get to the utility spot and it's the last player in your lineup, it's just whoever projects the best. It doesn't matter what position they are. So I wouldn't put too much thought into what position the utility player is. The only thing I will say is make sure the player you have that starts the latest of the day is in the utility spot. So that's the one
Yeah.
thing that I think is the best way to give yourself lineup flexibility is those spots in DraftKings, utility, forward, guard. You want those to be the later starting players, just in case players get ruled out. You give yourself the most flexibility possible to make swaps. But other than that, there's nothing else I would really add. How about for you, Adam?
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely make sure you have the latest guys there just so you have more flexibility, like you said. But in terms of, you know, I don't want to play a shooting guard. I want to play a center. It doesn't matter.
Are there any cheap guys that you like from the Wizards with Bradley Beal out?
No, this morning Josh and I talked about Daniel Gafford a bit because in each of the last two games he's actually played alongside Porzingis, which is something that they hadn't done all season long. But now it's nowhere near as appealing. If you wanted to just play a cheap center that isn't Thomas Bryant, you could make a case for Gafford. But again, like assuming Bryant's starting, that's just so much riskier because basically you're hoping that they continue to play Gafford and Porzingis alongside each other for a few minutes. So like maybe Gafford gets to 18 or 19 minutes. And if Bryant starts, there's a good chance he's playing 26 to 28. And so you're still playing catch up, even if you do get the rotation you want from Washington. You can kind of see like how big that gap is. But Gafford is a good point per minute guy that has seen favorable rotations recently.
So let's move on and talk about the Chicago Bulls. And this has just been a difficult team to parse this year because individually, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Vooch, we know these guys have upside, but it's kind of hard to know which guy it's going to be on any one given night. And then also, there's so many good value plays on the slate. I think by the time that we get to lock and I'm building lineups, I'm probably just not going to get to really any of these guys because I'm going to have the salary to get up to the tier one stars opposed to these guys who are, like tier two and a half DFS stars. But do you see it differently? Do you really like either of DeRozan, LaVine, or Vooch?
No, it's just another one of those teams. Vooch and Levine are the top two guys for me from Chicago. But as far as my actual lineups go, getting like 7% Vooch, getting like 11% Levine, it's just going to be really difficult to really build around those guys because it means giving up, players that look better. So I think that the two best plays on the Bulls are Vooch and Levine. I would say DeRozan is third. We do need to keep an eye on the status of Alex Caruso. He's been back in the starting lineup. He's only 3,500, so he would be a reasonable value option if he plays. If he doesn't play, I expect that you see Ayo Dosunmu move back into the starting lineup. But one way or the other, we have so much value that I'm still not really getting there anyway.
Yeah, Dosunmu, let's see, what is his salary today? He's 4,400 on FanDuel, so it's not like he's the min price there on DraftKings. Io is $3,600, so I think that would be playable, but ultimately, just there's going to be better guys who are points per dollar basis. But if you were in a pinch, I think Dosunmu, if he was to start in the absence of Caruso, would be worth getting to. Anything else you want to mention from the Bulls?
No.
Okay, let's move on then to the Oklahoma City Thunder against the Memphis Grizzlies. And OKC, SGA has been terrific this year. Josh Giddey has upside. Every once in a while, his minutes get jerked around. He's been a little bit high variance. The rest of the guys, good fucking luck guessing their minutes. It is all over the place. The rotations, the lineups make no sense. There's no consistency. SGA, Giddey, neither of them are priorities for me. If you got to them, cool.
Yeah, same here. You can't really trust a whole lot from this team. Lou Dort is out, which would normally be pretty big news because you're missing a guy that plays 30 minutes a night and starts. But like you said, for OKC, who the hell knows where those minutes are going to go? And most likely, they're going to guys that aren't very good point per minute producers. So if you get to SGA at 10,300 or at 10,300, great. The issue, I've kind of already alluded to it. Not only do you have Westbrook and Poole and Thompson, you have John Morant, you have Halliburton potentially. If not Halliburton, you have more guard value. You have your preference, whoever you want out of Trae Young or other pay up guys, Zach LaVine, D'Angelo Russell, Drew Holiday, just so many guard options that SGA is just kind of difficult to get to outside of random lineups here or there. Same goes for Josh Giddey. His playing time gets jerked around a little bit more than SGA's does, but you can still expect him typically to play around 30 minutes. He's 7,300. Outside of that, though, I don't really have much of anything. We probably, or maybe, I don't even want to use the word probably with this team. We maybe get Pokusevski back in the starting lineup, but even in recent games where he started, he's played so inconsistently that he's a really risky option. You could also just get like Aaron Wiggins thrown in there. He's 3K, but he also sucks. So, is what it is. Yeah, whoever starts in place of Dort, like if it's Poku, he looks better than if he's coming off the bench. If it's Aaron Wiggins and you really just are dying to roll the dice on 3K Aaron Wiggins, then fine. But realistically, I hate this team overall, and I'm probably getting to either SGA or nobody.
And the other thing I'm going to mention too, just because a player starts the game for the Thunder does not mean they have to start the second half or even play in the second half, because that's just the way that Dagnall runs his rotations, where it's like, hey, we've seen a game where Pokusevski started, came off the bench, a couple games, started, and then played a bunch in the first half, and then just like didn't play at all in the second half, didn't start, and ended up ultimately playing less minutes. So
yeah,
super hard to project the rotations.
I just wanted to check because I couldn't remember. So as far as G Leaguers on the injury report, Ousmane Dieng is out, and so is Lindy Waters. So Dieng is another recent rotation piece that isn't playing, in addition to Kenrich Williams. But you do still have Mike Muscala back, who was out for a prolonged period of time. Baisley's not on the injury report. There's still no other Jalen Williams isn't on the injury report. There's still no shortage of guys that they can use to screw up this rotation.
I think that's part of the confusion too. I think Dagnall is so dumb that there's two Jalen Williams and he just kind of like points to the wrong guy when they're about to start half sometimes and stuff like that. And it causes confusion on the bench, but the rotation is just so difficult to figure.
I actually think he's doing a good job, but the issue is that it is just at complete odds with what we want him to do. Like he has talked about intentionally not having rotations because he just wants to see all of these guys play alongside each other and see how they fit. And that makes our job basically impossible.
It also, OKC is clearly overperformed. They're really good against the spread this year, which I think is a pretty good barometer in terms of how good a team is relative to expectations. And clearly he's gotten a ton out of SGA. Like SGA is as good as he could possibly be right now. The thing that I think I most disagree with is that he thinks that changing starting lineups and rotations affords him some kind of competitive advantage, which I guarantee you nobody gives a shit whether it's like who are some guys at the end of the OKC that, yeah, like nobody's sitting there going like, oh shit, Isaiah Joe is coming in instead of Aaron Wiggins. Like we're screwed now.
I don't think it's a competitive advantage thing. I think it's a looking forward to the future. Like, how does this guy fit with this guy, or how does this guy fit in that role? My big question with it, and obviously I know OKC is good as far as analytics go, so I'm sure they have an answer. But my question is like, because he specifically said like we don't even really care about sample size, we just want to keep throwing different shit out there and see if we see anything that we like. To me, it's kind of like I've always viewed it as like don't change 8 variables at once, but they seem to feel differently.
Well, no, there was a time before the season, though, where he said that he thinks lying about injury reports and starting lineup gives him a competitive advantage. Okay. That was the part I was talking about. He thinks that if you because he did in a preseason game and then they got fined and he was like, the NBA is out to get me. So that's the part that I was like, oh, this guy might be a little bit of a donk. But yeah, overall, he has gotten a lot out of his team. So I will give him credit for that. On the other side of the game, when it comes to the Memphis Grizzlies, they've got their core guys back. John Morant, he's playing after not playing last game. Jaren Jackson Jr., he's playing after not playing last game. John Conchar also returning. Does anything really stand out to you from Memphis?
John Morant, I think, looks good. That is one of the guards that I am getting to. If the slate started right now, I'd have about 28%, which obviously that's substantial when you have so much going to Jordan Poole and Russell Westbrook also. We only have Morant projected for 10% ownership. So if he stays in that same ownership range with other guys, like Trae Young, more than SGA, but similar, I'm just going to get to more Morant because he has been a better point per minute guy than everybody else in his price range when Desmond Bane's been out. He's averaged about a fantasy point and a half per minute in the 8 games that he's played without Bane and with Jackson, playing a little bit more in terms of playing time. Usage rate has skyrocketed into the mid 30s, assist percentage north of 40%. He's just doing everything when he's out there. So if he's going to be comparably owned to other guys in that price range, I really like getting there. And then, also a good matchup against OKC. Not that I care too much about individual individual defense, but Lou Dort being out certainly isn't likely to hurt John Morant either.
So let's move on to the next game. But first, guys, do us a favor, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel because Josh Engleman is in the chat and he's going to be on the next show. And I don't want to be berated for not getting enough likes on the video when he comes in. So like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Now we got the Detroit Pistons against the New Orleans Pelicans. For Detroit, Bojan Bogdanovic has just had some massive games as of late. He's pretty scoring dependent, but when he's making those shots, and we saw last night putting up 50 plus fantasy points, he does have a ceiling there. I think for this slate, though, it's kind of hard for me to really want to get to anybody just because there's so much better value elsewhere.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. This team's been very, very difficult to want to get to recently. They've also started to run pretty unappealing rotations where you have like a direct backup at every position, which typically can kind of cap the playing time of guys ahead of them a little bit, just because it makes it a little bit more difficult for them to get more minutes because it means you're directly taking it from somebody else. If I go to anybody from Detroit, I think it would be Bogdanovic. He's played really, really well without Cade Cunningham. And, we saw it again last night. It's just been a pretty consistent thing. But all of that being said, I have basically no interest in the Pistons.
Yeah, I will say on FanDuel, Bojan right now is projected for 1% ownership, and his price has actually come down. He's only $5,700 on FanDuel. I think it's a little bit of a misprice, and I think the ownership is a little bit low. Hard to prioritize him with all the options, but over the course of a bunch of lineups on FanDuel, I would be playing more than 1% of him at $5,700 with some of the upside that he showed. On the other side of the game, the New Orleans Pelicans, there's still no Brandon Ingram for them, so Ingram is dealing with, a toe injury, Brandon Ingram? Toe contusion for Brandon Ingram. Hasn't played. In his absence, we've seen Zion step up a little bit more opportunity for CJ McCollum. It's a good matchup against the Detroit Pistons. Are you going to be paying up for anybody here?
I would really like to get to Zion. This morning, I actually thought that I would get to a lot of him and less Siakam. But again, the way it looks right now, I'm kind of just jamming in Siakam at that price point. I do think that Zion is a good pivot there if you want to go that route, though. Certainly wouldn't be upset if that works out for me because Zion getting 8% ownership at 9,600, Siakam getting 20% at 9,800. You do have power forward and center eligibility for Siakam, but that doesn't make too much of a difference. Zion's averaged 34 minutes per game in the games he's played with McCollum and without Ingram. He's averaged about 1.45 DraftKings points per minute. So I do think he's a good play in tournaments. I actually wish I were getting more right now. I hope that changes between now and lock, but one way or the other, I do think that he's a good play. McCollum has struggled a bit in those 4 games, only about a 22.8% usage rate, but he's averaging 34 to 35 minutes. It is likely you see that usage rate come up a bit. So I think he's a good play as well, but Zion's the one that I'm really looking at and saying, like, I'm nervous that I'm not getting more.
And then any of these other guys, whether it's Valanciunas, Trey Murphy, Dyson Daniels has played extended minutes in the absence of Ingram. Anything of that of interest to you?
Not really. I mean, we just have so much other value on the slate. It looks like I'm getting to a little bit of Alvarado right now, which I would be perfectly fine if that disappeared. Would not care at all. But yeah, that's kind of how I view that's kind of how I view the rest of this team. Different slate. I would like the idea of taking some shots at a $6,100 Joe Val, just hoping that he goes nuts in his 25 minutes against a Marvin Bagley and Jalen Duren front court. But on this slate, that just becomes really difficult to do.
All right, so let's move on to the next game. Although first, I should shout out that if you guys want to get access to all the tools we have over at Stokastic, there's a really cheap way to get them for free for 3 days. Because you haven't signed up yet, you can click on the link below or the link that's in the YouTube chat, and that is going to get you access 3 days for free. You can check out our ownership projections, our player projections, and our new lineup generator tool, which is the easiest way to build up to 20 lineups in a blink of an eye. So all you have to do is click a couple of buttons, and you're going to get 20 lineups that are made for you. And it's based on our projections. It's based on all the simulations we run here, and they're lineups that we expect to finish in the top 20 percentile of tournaments over time. So a lot of good stuff that we have behind the paywall, and you get access at 3 days for free if you want to try it out. Let's move on here to the next game, which is the Sacramento Kings against the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, I think there's a lot of upside in some of these individual Kings players like Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, but they're expensive, and this is a brutal matchup against the Milwaukee Bucks. The Kings are one of the teams I have the least amount of interest in tonight.
Yeah, same for me. Josh and I talked about it this morning, and it really just, this whole team comes down to, for their cheaper starters, like Kevin Huerter, if you're at the final spot in your lineup and you want a low-owned guy that's going to play 30-plus minutes and you want to just try and get lucky with him, sure. When it comes to guys like Sabonis and Fox, you're never wrong for putting in a low-owned guy that averages 1.3 to 1.4 fantasy points per minute, but they're certainly not guys you're prioritizing, certainly not guys that you're going to first or second on this slate. Tough matchup, and just, I think, pretty fair pricing at positions that are absolutely loaded.
Yeah, it's just going to be hard to get there. They're expensive. There's other guys that are priced fairly similar I prefer. And then as for the mid range guy, there isn't even anybody in the mid range I project well on this team, like Keegan Murray, Harrison Barnes, Malik Monk, Kevin Herter. Points per dollar base, I don't think any of these guys stand out. None of them really have spectacular upside. The Kings are almost certainly going to be my lowest, or at least one of my amongst the lowest owned teams on the slate. Terrence Davis is questionable, but his absence wouldn't really change much for me.
No, I don't think it changes much either. Like, it makes Malik Monk's minutes more stable, but on this slate, I don't think it matters a ton.
And they are taking on the Milwaukee Bucks in Milwaukee. We've got the Bucks now have Chris Middleton back. We haven't seen a whole lot of Chris Middleton, but him being back in the mix, you would think that would have somewhat of a negative impact on Giannis. We've still seen some big games as of late from Giannis, and that was despite him actually kind of struggling a little bit, at least relative to Giannis expectations. But this is like we're going to have a lot of value at him. How often do you see yourself paying up for Giannis?
Not very often, because we have a lot of value, but we also have a lot of really good mid-range plays, and then we also have good pay-up guys that just cost less than Giannis. For example, Kevin Durant is still nearly $2,000 less expensive, so I'm just going to get there more frequently. Not getting to a lot of Giannis right now, got like 3 to 4%. We have him projected for 6%, so I'm pretty much in line with the field there. He's just still really, really expensive. Where I am interested on this team, though, is Drew. He's projected for about 6% ownership at 7,700. I talked about him this morning. I sort of mentioned him earlier. This is a really appealing spot for Milwaukee, and I think he's just kind of getting slept on in that he's still a good fantasy producer, even when Chris Middleton is in. Since the start of last season, he's played 49 games where Giannis and Middleton have both been in. In those games, he's averaged 1.13 DraftKings points per minute and about 34 minutes per game. At very little ownership in 7,700 against the Kings, that seems really appealing to me.
Yeah, and I think also when we look at some of these Bucks players, I don't really we typically don't expect them to have a massive minute ceiling. It's not been a team that typically plays their starters 36, 38 minutes in regular season games anyway. I don't think Middleton or anybody else really has a minutes restriction we should be concerned about right now.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Are there any of the role players you like from the Bucks? I know the answer is going to be no, but just bring it up anyway.
Nope.
3 games left to talk about. The next one is going to warrant a little bit more discussion because the Indiana Pacers are on the road against the Minnesota Timberwolves. This game has the highest total of the night. 237 points is the over-under in this game. And we don't really know who's going to be playing for Indiana, so we're going to have to talk about some what-if type scenarios because Tyrese Halliburton is questionable, Miles Turner is questionable, Jalen Smith is questionable, and TJ McConnell questionable for the 3rd consecutive night. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. For starters, just what are you keeping your eye on overall when it comes to the Pacers?
Every player on the team, basically. I tried to cover this one in the injury report, and it was just like, this is brutal. Fortunately, it's an 8:00 game. Hopefully, we get this news before 7:00. I assume we will get it at 7:00, and it'll really suck. But with Tyrese Halliburton, so right now I just have everybody projected in. If Halliburton is in at 9,300, I think he's a good play, especially with his ownership where it is right now at 6%. He's another guy that I'm paying up for and getting quite a bit over the field. If he ends up getting ruled out and TJ McConnell is in, it's likely you get McConnell in the starting lineup. He's 3,800. He's about a fantasy point per minute guy. He would likely play 30 plus minutes, assuming he's starting and not on a restriction. He would look like a really good value. Andrew Nemhard's gotten more expensive, up to 5,600 on DraftKings. He is still going to look good if Halliburton is out. Nemhard has taken on a bigger role as a playmaker. Obviously, that goes away a little bit if McConnell is in, but they also will need him to score a bit more, and he's been playing huge minutes. So if Halliburton's out, I think Nemhard looks good. If both Halliburton and McConnell are out, Nemhard looks great. McConnell will look good if he's starting. Moving to the front court, if Miles Turner is out, I have no idea what that does because in most games, Isaiah Jackson has been his backup, but we have in recent games seen Isaiah Jackson's playing time decreasing a little bit so that he's not just playing every single minute that Turner isn't out there. Last game, they started Benedict Mathurin with Turner out, but that was against Golden State. Here you have Rudy Gobert on the other side for Minnesota. I think it's likely that – so probably also depends on the status of Jalen Smith, who's questionable. You could go Jalen Smith at the 5 like they did against Golden State. I think it's more likely that they could go Goga or Isaiah Jackson here than it was against Golden State. If Turner and Smith are out, you're probably getting like O'Shea Brissett and one of Goga or Jackson or Terry Taylor. There's a lot of ways it could go, but they all sort of end up with either the starter, in this case Miles Turner, in the guard case Tyrese Halliburton, looking like a good play, or whoever's filling in for them looking like a good play.
I think Andrew Nembhard might be legitimately really good.
I think he might be too.
And the fact that he, not that I know shit about scouting, but the fact that he ended up being the last pick in the draft last year looks like maybe one of the bigger steals that we've seen in recent memory. Because it's when it comes to Nembhard, it's not just that he's put up some big counting stats. He's shooting 49% from the field, 43% from three, and 91% from the free throw line. I know that he's only played 19 games, only been 24 minutes. If he's even able to keep up a portion of that kind of efficiency, he's going to be a really, really good player and could form a really formidable backcourt. Mathurin, Nembhard, Halliburton, that's a really good core for a young team. So when it comes to Nembhard, if I know he's more expensive now, but if we do see Halliburton and McConnell ruled out again, he's still too cheap considering how high the total is for this game. The Warriors were so just thrown off they double teamed him the second half of last game. And Steph Curry was like, what do I do here? Because Steph Curry, it was like, it was almost like him getting a taste of his own medicine, where it's like, there's nothing you can do to stop this. He was hitting contested threes. He was making plays for other guys. If Nembhard is going to start a point guard without Halliburton and McConnell, I love getting to him. I think we should also talk about the potential of, if he's in, what do you make of Halliburton? Because I think this could be a pretty favorable spot for him.
Yeah, I like Halliburton if he's in, assuming we don't get, he's in, but on a minutes limit. Right now, if the slate started, I would have like 20% Halliburton. We have him projected for 6% ownership. I think 9,300 is just too cheap of a price tag. So yeah, I like getting there. I like getting to whoever is starting at point guard for the Pacers tonight.
Yeah. So by the way, because we got our guy Eric in the chat, said that he thought he was the 31st pick. He was the 31st pick in the second round, though, not the 30.
No, he was 31st overall.
Oh, okay. Well, then ESPN is wrong. They have his drafts info listed as the second round 31st pick.
Yeah, he was the first pick of the second round.
Okay. So I misunderstood how I thought that it was okay. I should have also
but
thought
still
about
didn't go in the first round.
Yeah. Either way, I mean, Nembhard as a second round pick seems fairly absurd. But we've got a couple of super chats here that just came in. And actually, this is a pretty interesting talking point from Goody. He wants to know, what are the chalk donkeys we're playing in single entry? DK less than $1,000, less than 1,000 player pool. So less than 1,000 people in the tournament. So Adam, if we look at the most chalky players on DraftKings today, which are the ones that you still think make sense for single entry? For me, I'm going to start by saying Thomas Bryant. I would still play Kuminga. Clay. Honestly, most of the chalky guys I think still make a lot of sense. Clay, Poole, Westbrook, Kuminga, Bryant, I still think are good single entry plays. Any of those guys that are really popular, you would not like in single entry.
No, I mean, I think they all are good plays as well. Just based on how my exposures look, because I don't think that you necessarily, or especially in NBA, playing single entry like wildly different than 150. Like you're still in 150, you're playing lineups that are mostly chalky. Looking at the exposures I'm getting to amongst those top guys, like I'm still getting a lot of Bryant, a lot of Westbrook, a lot of Poole, a lot of Kuminga, which we'll talk about that. I'm not super comfortable with, but a lot of Kuminga. Klay Thompson out of those top 5 guys is the one that I am not getting as much of. So my assumption is in my best tournament lineups, which are the ones I'm putting in single entry, Thompson's the one that's likely to sort of be skipped over there.
Jeff Williams wants to know, if Halliburton and McConnell are both out, who'd be the bigger priority for DK, Clay or Nembhard? That's going to be Nembhard for me, I think.
I think it's close. It's probably Nembhard. I mean, obviously, I just said that I'm not getting a lot of Clay anyway, but that's more of a I need to be different somewhere thing than not liking Clay. I think Nembhard being a little bit cheaper, probably playing more minutes, and then again, just having the ball in his hands a ton on a team that just has no playmaking outside of him would make me go to Nembhard first.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the kind of role that Nembhard could have in that situation last game, and it was a lot of usage, a lot of assist opportunities. As high as Halliburton's assists are this year, I actually believe, and I could be wrong on this, but I saw somebody tweet it earlier and I was looking it up. I think on a per minute basis, Nembhard actually has more potential assists than Halliburton has this year.
Wow.
So Part of that is just going to be what the Pacer system is, it seems, where it just really filters assists to the point guard. But Nembhard played a crazy high role last game.
He's played 111 minutes now without Halliburton or McConnell. 1.22 DraftKings points per minute, 21.5% usage rate, 42.7% assist percentage.
Yeah, those are crazy, crazy high numbers, especially considering his price point, a little more expensive than last game, but in the grand scheme of things, not an expensive price point. So my answer to you, Jeff, is going to be Nembhard there. Let's move over to the other part of the game, which is the Minnesota Timberwolves. And we've got Rudy Gobert coming off a super annoying game where he started off really well. And then for whatever reason, decided that he was going to try to trip Kenrich Williams. As a result, he gets ejected from that game. Rudy Gobert coming back. I assume people are not going to want to play him. If Miles Turner is out, this is a pretty easy matchup for Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I agree. I'm getting to Gobert here, and it scares me because I don't know what to make of him without Karl Anthony Towns. He's been flat out bad without him on the floor this year. But at the same time, Rudy Gobert has played without Karl Anthony Towns his entire career and been good. So I don't know what to make of it. I still think it's a small sample size thing and that you see it start to correct itself. Obviously got ejected last game, so you can't read into the playing time there. He's not pulling any ownership. He's getting 4% ownership right now at 7,300. I like getting him in tournaments as a low owned, high upside mid range play.
Yeah, and he's also, particularly on FanDuel, $6,800 for Rudy Gobert. I know the people hate him. Right? Nobody likes him. There's a massive bias against Rudy Gobert, and it doesn't help when he's one of the chalkiest players on the slate and he gets ejected in the first half of a game, which is going to build up even more bias against him. But he projects really well for me today, and I think he should. And then it's going to be another spot potentially if there's no Miles Turner, where the matchup would be even easier on paper. I'm going to be playing Rudy Gobert today. I'll be overweight to the field on him. And I think he's somebody who's hard to project ownership for just because he's the type of guy where I actually think biases are going to impact the amount that people are rostering him.
Yeah, it certainly could. And I mean, also, there's a lot of good center plays. So, we've talked about guys that I like that I wasn't really getting much of, Claxton, Capella, that are getting more ownership. And the fact that people are playing them just leaves a ton of, it makes it really difficult for those people to get to Gobert and makes it so I can kind of just get there and hope that he finally has a big game.
Super chat from It's Jay. He wants to know, would either of us mind explaining the boom bust tool? Pool and come are great plays, phrasing. Both are plus on DK and minus on FanDuel. Thank you. So the reason that they would potentially be negatively leveraged on one site and positively leveraged on the other site, it's going to be a factor of pricing, ownership, and projection. So one thing about DraftKings is it's generally just easier to play some of these really cheap guys in more spots because there's so much flexibility in the lineup spots on DraftKings where it just affords you the ability, if somebody's a really good points per dollar play, where even if they are really popular, there's a good chance it's just easy to fit them in and for them to still be positively leveraged. But the way the boom bust tool works overall, it's just this is what their ownership projection is. And then based on our simulations, this is their projected odds to be in the optimal lineup. And then this is whether they're positively or negatively leveraged. It's not really too much more complicated than that. Obviously, the math behind how often a player is in the optimal lineup is a little more complicated. But the tool itself is just kind of a baseline expectation of whether players are too popular or not popular enough.
Yeah, and one thing I will add there, because I think there's sort of a tendency of the way we talk about it and then the way people tend to view it. Just because somebody is getting more ownership than their chances of being optimal doesn't just mean they're a bad play. Like, you're not trying to make the optimal lineup. You're just never going to do it outside of like 2-game slates. So there's going to be a lot of situations where it's like, oh, well, this guy is over-owned, but he's getting 70% ownership and he's only 55% likely to be in the optimal lineup. He's still a really good play because he's going to be in the optimal lineup over 50% of the time, and you can just plug him in, and there's going to be more advantageous spots to get different. So it's not just, blindly looking at it and saying like, oh, this guy's getting too much ownership, but it does sort of quantify, you can look, one way I really like to do it is, if you have, like, let's say you have 3 point guards between 7K and 7,500, you have one guy getting 15% ownership, 2 getting 5, and they all have a 10% chance of being optimal. That's a spot where it's probably a really good idea to be playing more of the 5% owned guys and less of the other guy.
Yeah, and then by the way, Terry just pointed out to me that some of the optimal percentages in FanDuel, there's an update coming through. Some of them are a little off right now, but that'll be fixed in short order. So Apparently, that's another reason right now they might be looking at, and it's a little off, but it'll be corrected in short order once an update comes through. So let's get back to talking about Minnesota. And outside of Rudy Gobert, Anthony Edwards has had some big games lately. It's a good matchup for him, finally starting to play better after a really slow start to the year. Does Edwards or any of the other Timberwolves guys stand out to you against a potentially watered down version of the Pacers?
Yeah, I think Russell and Edwards both look good. Getting to around 12% Russell right now. Not getting to a ton of Edwards, wish that I was. He does get a nice bump without Karl Anthony Towns, up to about 1.25 DraftKings points per minute. Right now, just looking like another guy that I'm personally not getting to a ton of. Hopefully that changes. But Russell in particular at 7K looks good. I am interested to see what the starting lineup looks like for Minnesota as well. We got Wendell Moore starting the last game, Kyle Anderson on the bench. I don't know if they continue going to that or not. I still, one way or the other, expect the closing lineup to have both McDaniels and Anderson. So I'm not overly concerned about it, but would like the playing time for Anderson a bit more if he starts.
The next game, we've got another pretty key injury situation because for the Warriors, Draymond Green is out, Andrew Wiggins is out, and Steph Curry. All of them are sitting today. Kind of curious that Klay Thompson is still going to be out there, but Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, they figured to be the players that are going to be leading this team in usage. We also have Jonathan Kuminga as one of the preeminent value plays on this slate, expected to start really cheap on DraftKings, really cheap on FanDuel, and the field is playing him in a pretty big way. Kuminga, 3,400 is projected to be in 47% of lineups on DK. On FanDuel at 4,000 is projected to be in 49% of lineups. Let's start with Kuminga. How do you view him as a value option relative to his ownership?
I'm going to be playing a lot of him. I'm not as confident in him as the projections are. I'm going to be really pissed off when he sucks. But so I kind of had alluded to it a second ago when we were talking about the most popular plays, and somebody said, why wouldn't you like Kuminga? He projects really well. The reason is that I don't totally buy the projection. We have Kuminga in right now for like 34, 35 minutes. That's certainly possible, but it doesn't have to happen. Like Anthony Lamb can play plenty of minutes. I expect Anthony Lamb to play plenty of minutes. You can get minutes you can get Moody, you can get DiVincenzo playing minutes. This team isn't quite as shorthanded as they have been in other games where Kuminga has started and averaged 38 minutes. So that's kind of my concern with him, that and he's not a very good point per minute guy. But those concerns are also sort of alleviated because at the end of the day, he's 3,400 on DraftKings. Assuming he starts, like I would never go lower than 28 minutes on him. I'd probably go to like 30. If you tell me he's playing 28 to 30 minutes, I'm still playing a lot of him, even if I think he ends up being a little bit overowned. So I'm not quite as bullish on him as projections, but he's also cheap enough that I don't care all that much.
Yeah, I think on FanDuel, because before when somebody said, why would he be different positive leverage on FanDuel, negative or a positive leverage on DraftKings and not on FanDuel? One thing that's different about Kuminga on FanDuel, two things. He's 4,000 on FanDuel, so he's more expensive, but he's also only small forward eligible on FanDuel. You only have two lineup spots to play him on, whereas on DraftKings, you could play Kuminga as a power forward, you could play him as a center, you could play him as a forward and as a utility. So there's just more plays, more spots to play Kuminga on in addition to it being cheaper, which is why he does look better on DK than FanDuel. I do think it makes sense ultimately to be underweight to Kuminga on FanDuel if you guys are playing a bunch of lineups. On DraftKings, it's hard to avoid him, particularly if you're playing cash games. Just play him. No matter what you think of Kuminga as a really player, you're playing him in cash games. Not even a second thought about it. As for the other players on the Warriors, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, do you have a preference between those two as the pay up options on the Warriors?
Right now, it seems that I do. I have like 74% Poole. I have like 10% Thompson. So it's a spot where they're both getting a lot of ownership. Poole at 36%, Thompson at 26%. And I'm kind of just jamming Poole and not getting the Thompson. I don't feel super confident in that, but Poole has been extremely good this year without Curry on the floor. I think it's likely you get a couple extra minutes from Poole. So yeah, I'm getting more Poole right now. Thompson, I do think is a good play. Just have to start being different somewhere, and he's kind of the guy that's been getting kicked out of my lineups a little bit. We have Poole projected 4 points higher than Thompson. That's certainly playing a role.
Yeah, and any of the other Warriors guys here that stand out to you? Because there's a lot of opportunity.
So here's the follow-up to my why I'm going to be really pissed about Kuminga thing. Anthony Lamb should not be getting 1/10 the ownership or 1/9 the ownership of Jonathan Kuminga. The range of outcomes on these two guys, even like Kuminga, I think is ahead of him. The range of outcomes is, I think, a lot closer than projected. We have Kuminga 11 to 12 points higher than Lamb. I don't think it's that much higher. I think Kuminga is the better play. I think Kuminga projects higher, but I don't think you should be getting a 9-1 ownership discount on Anthony Lamb.
No, I do think that makes sense in large field tournaments for sure. You can make a case for Lamb. I actually been projected fairly decently, not as well as Kaminga because I think he's going to
Right.
come off the bench, so I gave him less minutes. But
I think
on
he's
a
going to start.
on a points per dollar basis, I mean on a points per minute basis, I have them fairly similar.
Wait, you don't think Anthony Lamb's going to start?
Um, I think DiVincenzo is going to start.
Oh, okay. I was thinking Kaminga and Lamb, but certainly could be DiVincenzo.
Yeah, it could be. I'm not married to that being the idea.
Yeah.
I just think it's
The
DiVincenzo
only
for
thing
now.
I'm confident in is two of Moody, DiVincenzo, Kaminga, and Lamb are starting.
Yeah, I agree with that. Utah Jazz on the other side of the game, pretty easy matchup against the Warriors considering who the personnel is for today. Anything you like from Utah, though? We do have Mike Conley potentially coming back listed as questionable, which would definitely muddy the waters a bit.
Yeah, it does muddy the waters a bit. I like the idea of Lauri Markkanen. I'm having trouble getting a lot of him, but I do think that there's reason to be bullish on Markkanen still. He started playing more minutes. The whole team has started playing more minutes, and it coincided with Conley going out, but I don't think that it all has to do with Conley being out. Obviously Colin Sexton was playing more because of that, but I think it's likely that Olynyk and Markkanen just continue to play big minutes now that Utah's actually been a competent NBA team when they weren't expected to be. Markkanen's also averaged more fantasy points per minute playing with Conley than without him this year. Not by a substantial margin, but certainly hasn't been hurt by his presence. So I think that Markkanen is a pretty interesting tournament option, getting 5% ownership. I'm right around there in the lineups that I built before the show, but certainly wouldn't be upset if I got higher. So I still like him. Outside of that, though, I think it's going to be tough to get to much of anything. Sexton, clearly, price tag has come up. He's not going to look very appealing, assuming that Conley is back. Clarkson maybe loses a couple of minutes, and he's up to 7,400 on DraftKings. So for me, it's pretty much just Markkanen on DraftKings.
Yeah, and Teddy Wayman just left us a super chat. Any love for Walker Kessler on FanDuel today? No need on this kind of slate.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing. And then also, if you're going to get a game where Kessler doesn't play all the backup center minutes, this is the matchup where that would happen.
Yeah, I
Although they
think
do have Weissman back, so
the path to upside for him would be a blowout. Like if it's a blowout, short, you just don't need to play for that on 11
yeah.
games.
Well, I mean, it's Vanderbilt foul trouble too.
Yeah,
We've gotten a lot of games recently where Kessler has just played the straight backup minutes to Vanderbilt, but either way, I don't anticipate getting there on a slate of this size with this much value. Especially, is he only a center on FanDuel?
Let me check. I believe so because that's what he's been for most of the year.
I'll say I
Yeah,
think he was because yeah, he is. So he's a
center eligible
$4,000
in
center.
4,000.
That's pretty tough. Like if I were gonna play him, if I just really wanted to play Walker Kessler today, it would be on DraftKings since at least I can roster another center with him and he's only 3,700. But either way, I think it's a pretty thin play today. Maybe is this game on the late slate? Yeah, I assume the late slate is going to be this game and the next game. So in that case, I think you could go there.
Yeah, it's just the Warriors, Utah, and then Boston, Phoenix as the last two game slate of the night. And in this final game, really good game on paper. Boston against the Suns, arguably the best team in the Eastern Conference against the best team in the Western Conference, which is nice from a real life perspective. But from a fantasy perspective, kind of hard for me to really get behind too much from Boston. I've been playing a good amount of Jaylen Brown as of late. But this matchup is a little bit tougher, and I just think there's better plays to get to overall. So, Al Horford from the Celtics, but nothing stands out too much for Boston.
Yeah, just scrolling through, if I put lineups in right now, 3% Jaylen Brown would be my highest owned guy from this entire game, not just the Celtics. So really good real life game. And a lot of times that kind of just translates to not very appealing fantasy game. And that's how it looks right now. Clearly, if you get to Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, both guys are fine. It's just that I'm getting to Durant before I get to Tatum. I'm getting to other guys before I get to Brown. And I don't really have interest in anybody else.
Final spot on the slate, the Phoenix Suns and Chris Paul expected to be back today. I assume he's going to be somewhat limited in terms of his minutes, but either way, his return definitely makes Devin Booker a little bit less appealing. Booker's become more expensive, and he just crushed in the absence of Chris Paul. So kind of hard to like anything with Paul back in the mix.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. I've seen way too many people today ask about Josh Okogie, whether it was in this chat or this morning's. But no, Torrey Craig's expected to play. Paul's expected to play. Okogie wouldn't have been appealing regardless, but certainly isn't now. As far as real players on the Suns that are in their rotation, I don't really have much of anything. DeAndre Ayton getting the most ownership probably should. He's still 7,500, should play a bunch of minutes here and looks fine. I said earlier that I was getting like 20% of Gobert at 7,300. If you wanted to say that you would rather play Ayton at the same ownership, then I'm not going to really argue with you. I think that's a very reasonable take as well. Devin Booker's priced up from Paul being out. Goes without saying he still can go nuts, but it's very unlikely that he does. I don't have interest in this team.
Okay, that is going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you very much for watching, but don't go anywhere. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and stick around because Live Before Lock with Eric and Josh is next.
Oh, it's that time of week again. We're inducting you fine friends into the Stokastic Hall of Fame, giving out some free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. And all you got to do to get it is download the Stokastic profile picture at stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stokastic, HOF. It's Stokastic Hall of Fame on Twitter, and win a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. $120 value when you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Or if you got a nice win, maybe it doesn't qualify and you're just looking for a shout out, maybe we can oblige. Let's get into it. Some great ones heading into this week. First up, Bob Kramatola. We'll call him Bob C here. In the 333K Mega 8, 100K to first, takes it down in the NBA. Woke up to this today. What a way to wake up. Thank you, Stokastic Hall of Fame. Yeah, fantastic way to wake up, Bob. And then Steve Buzzard also woke up to something nice. Woke up aiming for another milli. Unfortunately, came up a bit short. That's Steve's like 19th six-figure win this season. Man's working hard behind the scenes. It's Stokastic every day, so you know what tools he's using. And then finally coming up here, I thought we had another waking up, but we don't. Thanks for assisting me in understanding DFS. Love it. Punched a ticket. Jay Lusty punching a ticket on FanDuel. Huge win. I told you we had some big wins this week. And then taking a trip to the Odd Chopper streets over in our premium Discord. Hiro Sandoza. How about this one? This is out of control. I think this is like $200 into over 20,000. I haven't done the math, but it sure looks that way. Saying you can use this for Odd Shopper Hall of Fame, and we will. Congrats, man. Massive win. And Ed Monk, 777. I'm in shock. 2 lineups in the $4. Handmade. No way I thought I'd take second for $7,500. First day using $5 1-week trial. Yeah, we just had that $5 1-week trial. Seems to be working out for you, Ed. Watching you guys for over 5 years, never gave up. You're the best in the industry. Thanks, man, and congratulations. And then how about Jason Pass? I won the Cincy versus Tennessee quarter arcade on Sunday. It's not much, but 300x. And remember, guys, it doesn't matter if you're entering with a quarter, a dime, whatever, a nickel, a dollar. As long as it's top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more and you're not chopping more than 3 ways, you're getting the free month. You're getting up here on the board, just like Jason said. This allows me to level up. So my next contest, my next wins will be even bigger. Thanks for all the great advice. And how about Michael Clem 822? Thank you guys. Best tools, all caps, in the industry. Special thanks to Neil Orfield and Draftaholics for the Thursday night Live Before Lock. Bam. First place, chopping with himself. Talking what, $9,500 there. Huge win on Thursday Night Football. And to wrap this one up, it's Nick Lepre, Notorious Fantasy himself, in the Pat Mayo Experience Listener League. $5,000. Man, what a way to close out week 13. Remember, stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stokastic Hall of Fame. Use the avatar wherever it is you play. And when you win, get that free month. We'll induct you right here. Welcome to all of you, and welcome back to those of you who have been here before. We'll see you next week for another round.
been like 2 days of this shit.
I mean, the good news is this has nothing to do with chalking, so. And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. It is Wednesday, December 7th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Eric Lindquist. We are brought to you by No House Advantage, and I know that because it's on the TV behind Eric's face and not because that was the only way that I was going to figure that out quickly without having to scramble. 11 games on today's slate. A lot of really weird news has come out so far. We've got a lot more to wait for. I think this is going to be a relatively tumultuous slate by the time we get to 10 o'clock. But either way, I'm excited for it. Hit that like button, folks. As usual on a Wednesday, we're in the mid 300s, which is, not great. I think we were over 600 when we handed this one off yesterday. So just in case anybody's curious how this one works out, sort of the same situation, but we'll get up over that 600 mark once we get there. Thanks, Greg, by the way. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's still, it's that same sicky feeling that I've had the last couple of days. Didn't mean to just throw it out there. I feel like crap. I'll still be energetic because I still can't be held down, but I don't really get sick. So this has been kind of a weird couple days. Been trying to get to bed early, trying to drink teas and do different things that maybe it's just like the overall holiday season and everybody kind of gets sick this time of year, but it hasn't hit me in years. So I'm going to play through it. It's not my flu game by any means. I'm not incapable of doing a show, but definitely not 100%.
I mean, I'm with you. The holidays make me sick as well. So this is great.
Make me sick.
That's true. Hate it. But
Cindy Loho.
Kinda. I am kind of a Grinch. A little bit. I mean, it's just, it's a half fake holiday. I'm all for it. Well, I'm all for it for the, the Christianity side. If you want to celebrate this as Jesus' birthday, clearly I get that. But just because Hallmark made something up.
Well, I mean, if you go to google.com and you look it up, I believe Jesus was actually born in the spring at some point in time, or that's really what historians say. There was a deep dive where basically it was the end of the year and they were looking to create holidays and things. What, Jordan Klein? What are you shaking your head about? I've heard this from multiple people before in my life. It's just, I believe, just with the way that the text is written, everything else, more than likely Jesus was a spring baby.
I mean, how much better would Christmas be if it were in spring? But I guess that's Easter, right? And we've co-opted that bad boy too.
It's like the Bill Simmons, the celebration of the first day that women wear skirts in Boston.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like those, I think that is Christmas for a lot of people. It's yay, we're out of hibernation.
Malakar, I don't, but I agree 1,000,000%. Great holiday for children. This is what this is, for sure. It is not a holiday for adults, and nor should it be. Love the idea. Giving kids gifts and seeing them light up when they open it up. Awesome. Even me with a black heart.
Shandy Low.
Yeah. So I am 100% in for giving gifts to people in need or to children. Love it.
Mm-hmm. I will say that's
from aunts and uncles.
Yeah, I don't need that either. One of the things that I do at the end of the year, I try to clean out my closet with stuff that I don't need anymore or other things. And you just put them in the red bins at the Good Samaritan. Just do that. It takes 2 seconds. Most people are home for the holidays. You're at your childhood home or, you're with family, whatever else. Just put a bunch of garbage bags together of stuff you don't use. Put it in there because those go to good use, especially, I live out here in LA. Can't tell you how far that can go for some people.
Yes. Show up with garbage bags filled with the things you don't use any longer for other people. That is called garbage.
Eric starting the show by tearing apart Christmas as a lie. Ha ha, savage. Way to extrapolate everything that I said. That is the most extrapolated piece of it's taking something that I said and just putting your spin on it. I in no way said that I don't like Christmas.
That's just me. I definitely
that would be Josh.
You ready to get this one started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we got a couple super chats that we need to hit on right out of the gate. This one's from Cully. That came at the end of Live Before Lock, I believe. Actually, let me move these windows around so that I can get chat back up on the top here. There we go.
It's lively right now. I don't know what's going on, but it's lively. It's flying.
So the question was, with all these people out, lots of people will go stars and scrubs. Is mid-tier scrubs the way to go with all the good mid-tier plays? Westbrook, Gobert, Irving, Siakam, Poole, etc. Here's the thing. I've never in my life have thought I'm going stars and scrubs or I'm going mid-tier. It's just sort of like whatever starts to get made gets made. If you build a mid-tier lineup with a star or mid-tier with some like two scrubs, so to speak, lower dollar plays, and that projects closely to high-end lineups with lesser ownership, that's just a good lineup. But it's not because it's like mid-tier scrubs. It's sort of just whatever works. I know that's a shit answer.
Yeah, it's not though, because I think we on these shows are trying to explain things. And one of the easiest way to explain them is when there's lots of value, say stars and scrubs. When there's not lots of value, you say mid-tier, because generally they're still going to project out better. You're running into plays that are going to be 3K that project out for 15 fantasy points, who might be your top values on certain slates. But it's just an ease of being able to explain things. Yeah. I think it's a combination on a slate like this. Most slates are going to be some kind of a combination, but Jordan Poole and Russell Westbrook are great plays, as are Thomas Bryant and Jonathan Kuminga. Just because one's in the mid-tier and two are cheap guys, don't make them unnecessary. Now, if you start getting multiple cheap players, like we're talking, let's say Troy Brown, like if you want to put Troy Brown into that category and you have three guys that are sub 3,500, I would hope that those lineups are paying up for top stud guys like John Morant, like Kevin Durant, like whomever else you might want to be paying up for on this kind of a slate. So to answer your question, stars and scrubs, it makes it easy for us to explain things quickly, to just tell you, hey, that means there's lots of value, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be looking at the mid-tier.
Correct. That's a great way to describe it. And then finally, we had another super chat from David that said, please cut one. Jalen McDaniels, Looney, Avdia, or Mo Wagner. I think we can cut a lot more than one there.
All of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Jalen McDaniels is the one Jalen McDaniels and Avdia are the two that I want to cut the least. But I don't care too much about any of them.
I mean, Mo Wagner's been like an eternal thing for however long, and I just missed the boat the other night in tournaments. So, excuse me. I couldn't even get to the mute button. Didn't even care. Does it hurt to speak there? I think we want to go to anything else than what you just had listed.
Yeah. Like, I think Jalen McDaniels is a really interesting play today. He's, 4% owned. If we look at Looney, he's 4.5% owned on DraftKings. If this is a FanDuel question, he's 17% owned. He's got power forward eligibility. I do think that he's a much better play there. If we're talking about Avdia, he's 7% owned on DraftKings. So, in this sort of same group of like not all that interesting, a little bit more owned on FanDuel. Just roster construction changes the way that you look at that. For Orlando, I mean, Mo Wagner is not someone that I'm trying to get to today, even with him starting. With Mo Bamba back now, there's just no... I don't think I'd be surprised if he was playing 30 minutes now with Bamba back. I don't know that he can't, but on this 11 gamer, it just seems like a bit too much.
Yeah, it's like the pastor meme. Why? Like, why would we do it? He hasn't played since the 27th, but he's at least in the rotation here. And that 5,300, you're paying a high point for a guy who's under different set of circumstances and could get massively affected by it. I'm with you. There's just no point.
Okay. Let's just keep hitting on some of these super chats that are coming in.
Cool.
My filler arc with Westbrook over the former Laker Russell. So Russell Westbrook over D'Angelo Russell today is the question mark.
Okay. Well, I like Russell Westbrook more, so there's that.
Yeah. Let's see. 30.
I mean, looking at their current ownership, I mean, Russell Westbrook's coming in double, but you've got a $5,000 gap between them on DraftKings. I do like the game environment. I like Tyrese Halliburton for tournaments. I like Andrew Nembhard in tournaments if you end up having that direction work out as well. Paying attention to the Indiana news is kind of the main thing that we're waiting on. But we just got word, like literally seconds ago, that Russell Westbrook's likely to come off the bench today. Maybe that changes my opinion a little bit, but he's still going to get a lot of run and a lot of opportunity to do his thing. He's still a good play. We'll see what happens to that ownership as it regards to that news.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think D'Angelo Russell is a really good play. I have no problem going to D'Angelo Russell over Russell Westbrook. I think they're relatively comparable, honestly. Like right now, I have Russell Westbrook's boom on DraftKings at 33.5, and I have D'Angelo Russell's at 30. Like, that is not all that different.
No, I mean, I had Russell Westbrook projected for 3.5 more fantasy points than I did D'Angelo Russell until we got that piece of news that he's not going to be. I didn't really think there was going to be a massive change. Like, in the event that you got, but for me, it was more of like Patrick Beverley got ruled out. Why are you not starting Russell Westbrook? It's a completely different set of circumstances. Maybe they're just standing pat with the take him off the bench and keep it that way the rest of the year thing. But he's still 6,500. He's still going to show up in lineups for me.
Yeah, still a good play off the bench either way. The real appeal was if he started, he could play like 36 minutes today if the game was competitive. And that at that point in time, you're going to really want him instead of just like think that he's a good play.
I'm still more inclined to think he plays over 30, even with this news.
I gave him 30 right now, just because at the very least, you know, you're trying to fit 30 minutes then into like a 44-minute game. You know, by default, he's not playing at the beginning. And if the game goes squirrely, like he's certainly not closing any sort of blowout either direction, and probably not the positive direction at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The Claw, best small forward, power forward on DraftKings, 4,800 or under.
Say that again.
Best small forward, power forward on DraftKings, 4,800 and under.
Okay. Well, I mean, my mind goes to Kuminga, who's way down there at 3,400. Lonnie Walker's up there for me. I think Lonnie Walker's pretty.
Likewise.
Yeah, I think Lonnie Walker, small forward, 4,600, somebody that I just like a lot for tournaments today. I think a lot of these Lakers that are coming in with lower ownership that aren't necessarily Thomas Bryant are very, very intriguing. Thomas Bryant's a good play, regardless of how you want to splice it up, with no Wendy Gabriel there. Obviously, no Anthony Davis, LeBron James. If he stays out of foul trouble, he'll have an opportunity to play. I don't think Damian Jones is much of anything there. I like Lonnie Walker. He's going to have to just go out and chuck. We've seen multiple times in San Antonio. That's something he's more than inclined to go out and do. His usage has been way down of late, too. I think you're going to get back up to that north of 20% type number in a spot like this. Sub 5K, prices come down. I'm pretty happy about that play.
I like Lonnie Walker quite a bit, so I'm right there with you. When's the last time we got an ownership update? That answer would be 20 minutes ago, so I could chill right now. We're about a quarter of the way through the pre-lock portion of this show. So again, hit that like button if you can. No reason we can't get up to 600. I mean, we had that by the start of Live Before Lock last time. No reason we can't have it right now.
Yes, sir.
Want to talk guards finally?
Let's do it.
We had a bunch of super chats, so you got to just start with the good stuff. I'd say who is your favorite guard for today, but I think that's a pretty stupid question. It's got to be Jordan Poole, right?
If it's not, you're in trouble.
Okay. We just sort of touched on Lonnie Walker, who does have guard eligibility. We've kind of talked about Russell Westbrook already at this point in time. So what else are you looking at guard? Who are some of the guys that you're getting to that you're expecting to be relatively heavily exposed to?
Yeah, Klay Thompson, also near the top there. He's 6,300, but you take Steph, you take Wiggins, you have an opportunity for him to go out and chuck. I will say I was a little bit surprised he still ended up playing in this one, but suppose they can try to backdoor a win here in this spot. They're only 7-point dogs in this current iteration. I'm happy to be getting to a little bit of good old Klay Thompson. He's been knocking down shots. He looks just much, much better here of late. And it's hard to get away from getting to at least some exposure there on the top end. I have a lot of tournament intrigue getting to like the top end. Ja Morant specifically going up against OKC. It's just going to be a really interesting spot for me to pay up for a little bit of being contrarian. The difficult part is that a lot of these guards are just such good value plays, specifically Jordan Poole, but he has the shooting guard eligibility, which helps out a little bit. Russell Westbrook, I still really like. D'Angelo Russell, Lonnie Walker, shooting guard, small forward. Like I still probably like paying up at forward a little bit more, but still makes sense to get to quite a bit of Ja Morant, I think, on this slate. Just too good of a game environment. Him, and then Tyrese Halliburton, if he plays, I'm just going to have so much of.
Yeah, right now on the FanDuel side, from a guard perspective, I have Jordan Poole in everything that I'm doing. I have Klay Thompson in just about half of my lineups. I'm not playing 150 like normal. It's a Wednesday live before lock. I have no interest in scrambling with everything. But I did enter like some 20 maxes and a bunch of single entries and everything just to scratch the itch a little bit. But Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson are my 2 highest exposed guards. The only other 2 guys that are close for me, $9,600 Ja Morant on FanDuel. That price is ludicrous. He's in half of my stuff.
Jesus.
Kyrie Irving, also very interesting to me at 8K. And especially because Brandon Katz said he was a terrible play. I've never liked Kyrie more.
I love it. The Brandon Katz bump.
Yeah.
It's
I'm getting
amazing
to
how
a
it
lot of
does
Anthony
work.
Edwards, Terry Rozier, Russ, obviously. Guy that I'm getting to the most that's not pulling a ton of ownership, would be Jaylen Brown, actually. Only 5% owned on FanDuel right now, shooting guard, small forward. So sort of touching both categories, but 5% owned Jaylen Brown. I'm always happy to get that, even on an 11-game slate. Our boy Jorge said, your top 3 pay-up guys on DraftKings, and who would you guys incline for between Poole and Klay if he is in? Incline. Decline?
No idea what that's saying.
Who would you be inclined to play between Poole and Klay? Maybe that's
Jordan Klein, actually.
Yeah, I'll play Jordan Klein. That's a good one. I like that. Top 3 pay-up guys on DraftKings.
Let me handle this 1 second.
Okay, you're good. I can hit top 3 pay-up options for me on the DK side. If we're going to assume pay-up is 9,800 or higher, just because there is a lot of ownership coming into Pascal Siakam, if we don't want to include him, then we should, because I think he is the best pay-up option. If we're looking at everybody else, the way that I have it, it would be Ja Morant and Kevin Durant as my 2 preferred. They are also the guys that are getting the most ownership, but the difference between 5% ownership and like 10%, which is what we have, is negligible on a slate like this. So Morant and Durant.
Those are my 2 favorites. Again, I like getting to Durant a little bit more because of the position that he's at and because of where we have Jordan Poole, who I'm just on board with you too, where how do you not play all the Jordan Poole and all the land today? I don't understand. I'm doing that, and therefore, obviously, I'm going to have more spots to be getting to the Kevin Durant side of it. I don't completely hate Giannis here either. You get the Sacramento bump. I know Chris Middleton alongside of him, not the most ideal thing, but you get that 5% Giannis type play on a large slate where we could have more value emerge here from the Indiana side. I think it makes sense that game locks in that same little window there at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if I'm going to get a bump to some of those Indiana guys just to try to get to a couple more shares to react to some of the news, I think getting to Giannis as a spend up makes a lot of sense. I don't have a lot of interest in Tatum, Brown, anybody from that late night hammer, so I don't have to think about a lot of those kind of spend ups. A lot of my lineups are going to be done by that Golden State Utah window. So I do like getting to a little bit of Giannis there.
Speaking of Giannis, if you query StatMuse and say, how many DraftKings points does Giannis average at home? That answer is 57.9.
You had to do it.
Okay, 57.9. And if you query StatMuse to see that, how many DraftKings points does Giannis average on the road? 57.6. So a difference of 0.3. So just in case you saw anybody in chat spewing out, typical nonsense, these answers are 5 seconds away using the Google machine, and they are basically the exact same number. So just putting that out there in case anybody was curious.
Who's curious? Who said such things?
We can't say the name, otherwise it'll just show back up. I mean, I don't know.
Does it rhyme with Schmanded Schmatz or
probably
Schmon Shvi? Or Schmop Schmoses.
That was a good one.
Thanks.
Anybody pulling ownership at guard that you don't like?
I mean, the chalk is pretty good. The chalk is generally pretty good on large slates. It's hard. I don't like Jalen Brunson at 7,200. That's probably the one that I'm all right getting away from. It's just been kind of a wonky situation. Have you looked at any of his defensive numbers with the Knicks? Because he is the absolute apocalypse. I'm surprised Tibbs likes him as much as what he does, because if you look at he's the 7th percentile on dunks and threes in terms of defensive plus minus. It is absurd to look at how bad he's been, but he's a 95th percentile on the offensive end. That's more of what we're worried about from a DFS perspective. But I think at 7,200, he just kind of ends up in no man's land. I would rather get into that 6K range. You have Poole, you have Westbrook, you have Thompson. I think that I like the builds that I have a little bit more without him, and he's pulling some actual ownership there at around 16%. I like the high upside options of John Morant. I like Anthony Edwards for tournaments at 8,800. Just kind of not landing on Jalen Brunson at all today.
I can't even disagree. He would have been the guy that I picked as I sorted by ownership. So we're on the same page then. Any
exciting.
flyers? Anybody you're taking that's just not getting any ownership? Who are your dudes for today?
Well, if I don't like him, don't I have to like Emmanuel Quickly? Like that's kind of the thing. 4,200 Emmanuel Quickly is pulling 6.5% ownership right now.
Yeah.
I think that's a good dart throw, because if you're looking for somebody who can just spike a shooting upside, look at something a little bit further down the board. He's 4,200. I think that if I'm not playing Brunson by default, I've given a little bit of a boost to Emmanuel Quickly. I think that makes sense. I'm curious, how many minutes do you think Paul George is going to play today?
I gave Paul George 32 minutes.
That's more than I gave him. If I give him 32 minutes, I get to him at 9K. He's only 5.3%. I have a history with this dude. I don't like him very much because he got the rumbly in his tummy, same way that I feel, but whatever. That day was still apocalyptic. I think he's all right, because I don't know. I would be kind of surprised if he got up to 5.3%, but with everybody else out there, you would have a confirmed workload there for Paul George regardless. He's just a dude who kind of is a little bit cheaper than some of the other guys up there. Maybe Kawhi. He's kind of not been your typical Kawhi so far this season. We'll see if he, in this iteration of himself, comes back and can be a little bit healthier. But if they're going to go out and just stomp Orlando, I bet Paul George is a part of that.
From a single-digit ownership perspective, Fred VanVleet and or OG Anunoby would be the guys that I'm looking at. This has become a very interesting spot for them. You just generally think that more garbagey players are going to cough the ball up a little bit. That kind of fits the OG Anunoby boom game. So if you have any interest there, I think he's getting underrepresented.
He's been in a lot of tournament winning lineups at 3%, 4%. Yeah, I can't say no to that. And Fred VanVleet now down to 7,100. I mean, if you just look at these icons, you have Pascal Siakam and Scotty Barnes' prices are going up. Everybody else's prices are going down as guys are getting healthier. I don't completely hate that shout out. 7,200. The guy legitimately could get 6 stocks without trying.
Some of those guys sound like really good plays that we've worked through, but the best thing that you could do today is sign up at No House Advantage using the promo code. There is no promo code. Click the link in the description and sign up. For a second, I was about to say the promo code was Awesemo. I went back like a year in my mind for some strange reason. There is a link in the description of our chat, of our video. I'm not having the best read here. I don't know if you've noticed.
Beat the house or beat the opponent. I can't remember the exact tagline. I was trying to save you. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Anyway, look, there is a link in the description of this video. Please click it. Head on over to No House Advantage. You'll get a $50 deposit match bonus. So my recommendation for all of these sort of deals that we'll ever give you is to put in as much as you possibly can up until that limit. So obviously put in at least $50 if you can. They're going to match with 50 because you can enter the following contest, which will be the best in the industry for today. The NBA 15K slam dunk, 5K to first, 1,200 entries. It is 19% full at the moment that I'm saying this. I'm going to refresh it just in case. Okay, it's up to 30. 360 of the 1,200 entries are in right now. You're going to see, at the very least, reduced rake, if not just some overlay. That's what you should be looking for all the time if you're trying to build a bankroll. We have No House Advantage projections on the site for free. You just head to stokastic.com, browse to them. You could look through them, rank all of those props on a confidence interval for yourself. That's going to help you out quite a bit. Or you can be even lazier about this and go to the No House Advantage optimal lineups page and just take the work that we've already done for you and load them in. There is not a better spot for you elsewhere in the industry. This should be your easiest way to start to build a bankroll. So please go check out No House Advantage. Link in the description of this video. That's the way that you should say that so that people understand what's coming out of your mouth.
See, you saved it.
The Claw
totally
wants to know Lonnie
yourself.
Walker or Denny Avdia, better fantasy points on DraftKings.
I am going Lonnie Walker.
I'm also going Lonnie Walker. Let's see what else we got. Jay, Markkanen for the late night 2-game contest. Absolutely. It's a 2-gamer, and Lauri Markkanen is the best guy on the Jazz, so very much so always available for you in that
Very
regard.
much so. Yeah, I would probably rank him pretty highly up there.
Am I missing any other super chats? I am missing super chats. So Jeff wants to know, will you spend a quick minute on the Pacers scenarios? Halliburton in and out, TJ in and out, both out. No. That's the worst part. Absolutely not. That sounds awful. There's nothing. They all cascade on each other. Like, to me, there's no way to actually talk about this right now.
Well, I think there's somewhat.
Go for it.
Halliburton and Turner out. I want to play all the Nembhard. I think that becomes pretty automatic here. Jalen Smith got downgraded to questionable as well. So you got to start talking about the same Isaiah Jackson type play. My night got salvaged and actually ended up making quite a bit of money on the O'Shea Brissett pivot just because I had to. The other night, that was awfully fun. He's shown that he can go out and get you a bucket, but do I expect 27, 32 minutes? I mean, no, especially if you get all the other guys ruled in. But if you get Halliburton, Turner, and Jalen Smith all ruled in, the only guy that I really want to play from the team, period, is Tyrese Halliburton. I might get to a share or two of a 7K Miles Turner, but Tyrese Halliburton at 9,300 would be a huge target. If you get Halliburton out, just automatically know that a 5,600 Andrew Nembhard is still a fantastic play, but you should have Golden State exposure. It's not something you probably need to be thinking about right now.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't have to deal with it.
There's 3 Q tags in the. I mean, we've got like 100 minutes of Q tags in the starting lineup plus TJ McConnell. There's too many iterations there. Like, if everybody's in, don't play them.
Yep. Except for Halliburton, I'll play.
Halliburton in, TJ McConnell out, or Halliburton out, TJ McConnell in, play TJ McConnell. Both guys out, play more Nembhard, play more Benedict Mathurin. Like, the trickle down sort of just is there for you. But, if we start losing Halliburton, Smith, Turner, and McConnell, then fire up your Isaiah Jacksons, fire up your O'Shea Brissetts. It's just a really hard thing to talk about because every single iteration changes. Like, you can go from not wanting to play Andrew Nembhard at all to wanting to play him in the most aggressive way possible. You can go from not wanting to play TJ McConnell at all to wanting to play him in the most aggressive way possible. The extremes here are like best play on the slate to not playable.
But look at that. You just explained perfectly what the situation is. So there you go. But again, this is why it's great to have all the Jordan Poole and why I like Klay Thompson so much. I will not like Klay Thompson nearly as much if I get Andrew Nembhard at 5,800 without all of these dudes, without TJ McConnell, without Tyrese Halliburton, without whomever there. It just opens up so much opportunity there for him. And we've now seen multiple times he will be very, very willing to take over a basketball team. He's still, without Halliburton, too cheap. He's unplayable beyond unplayable if Halliburton's in. So pretty easy to kind of go through the scenarios there. Just get more Golden State and you're fine.
Alrighty. And then did I just close chat? No, I didn't. There, found it. All right. Jones over Bryant on a back-to-back ownership difference. I mean, you shouldn't care at all about the back-to-back in this scenario for Thomas Bryant. At least I'm not. My assumption is he's just starting and playing at a minimum 24 minutes, if not significantly more. I think he looks like a fantastic point per dollar play. Probably the best point per dollar play on today's slate.
Yes.
Do I think that there's some viability for Damian Jones? Only if he starts. At that point, like, you can start working your way into it. I think Adams explained it best on the deeper dive. Oh, God.
Lauri Markkanen ruled out.
Holy shit. Okay, let's get into that in a second. I think Adam explained the Thomas Bryant, Damian Jones thing best on the deeper dive. I don't have any real interest on an 11-game slate in Damian Jones, assuming Thomas Bryant is the starter. I think Damian Jones is just someone that can ruin Thomas Bryant, not necessarily become a really good play.
Agreed. I think that is the perfect way of explaining. I think, I think Thomas Bryant at 3,100, you want to just play a lot of regardless of anything else. He and Jordan Poole are my 2 highest owned, but now, as if I wasn't worried about what happens with the Pacers enough, now I'm really not worried because I have a feeling Utah just became interesting.
By the way, rolling that back to Jay, please don't play Lauri Markkanen on the late slate.
Good note. Good find. Yeah. Good find.
Yeah, my opinion has slightly changed. All right, so we've got no Lauri Markkanen here. Zaire Williams, by the way, expected to play for the Grizzlies. I don't think that matters for the slate or anything like that, but interesting to see him back.
We'll see his second year. I wasn't overly impressed by him last year. It was just kind of a zero out there, I felt like.
I like him for the team. I don't really care about him from a DFS perspective.
Well, that's definitely true. I'm just talking about you like him from a team perspective. I mean, you can't have enough wings, but I feel like there are better ones available than even in that draft than what he was. But
I trust the Grizzlies as a developmental place to see like what he could be in like 2 or 3 years. Mike Conley also still out for Utah, which becomes very interesting. And we got a Clippers starting lineup, which is what I guessed earlier today: Jackson, George, Leonard, Batum, and Zubac. So that is what I've been projecting all day. It doesn't really make any difference to me now, but let's work our way through Utah. That is an actual thing that we need to do. Let's start here. Starting lineup for Utah: Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, question mark Jared Vanderbilt, Kelly Olynyk. Who is starting for Lauri Markkanen today?
I mean, Malik Beasley seems like a candidate in that rotation that you put out there. It would be weird to have. It would have to be Malik Beasley, wouldn't it?
Seems it, right?
Yeah.
So
I can't imagine they would do something ridiculous like Taylor Horton Tucker or something like that. That would be too much.
I think you could go Taylor Horton Tucker in this scenario, leaving Beasley. I don't know.
I think your instincts are right. I think your instincts are right where Malik Beasley makes the most sense. The most intriguing that I would want to see from a DFS perspective, you could get to THT and kind of guess right on that, and that lineup doesn't come out till after 8 p.m. Eastern time. That could be a really fun tournament play.
All right, let's work through it. So that's going to be Malik Beasley now getting to what, 32 minutes, something in that neighborhood, just by default?
Yep, has to.
Okay, because we now have a lot of free time. Did we get any official word on Rudy Gay?
Well, so that's the other guy that I would have put in the conversation about who it would have been. But
he's available.
He's not even on the injury report. But I can't imagine he just gets put into the starting lineup. That would be pretty absurd.
Was a left hand injury, so he should be in like relative game shape. Just thinking through that at least. Keep getting these super chats. Jorge, thoughts on? He hadn't
started a game all year. I can't imagine he plays more than 18 minutes. I would lose my mind.
Jorge wants to know thoughts on Kuminga today being so chalk when he's bad on a points per minute base.
Who cares?
I think he's a great play today.
He's fantastic. He's power
especially
forward,
on
center eligible. He's a phenomenal play.
Yeah, I have a ton.
Me too.
All right. Let's see. So
and here's the thing too. You should play more Kuminga because he's 3,400. And look at these two guys. Like if you get THT at 3,200, boom. If you have the nut lineup, you could stay on Kuminga. Everything's great. But like this game is just phenomenal from a DFS perspective now. It already was, but like now the Utah side is plausible too, and we're going to be getting to it.
I don't know where the rest of these minutes are going. I feel like Jared Vanderbilt is now kind of like a lock for more minutes.
Yeah, it's, if he can keep his hands to himself, yes.
He
had some foul trouble earlier in the season. He's gotten so much better. I don't know what they're doing to work with him, but there were multiple times early in the season where I figured if he could just stay out of foul trouble, he'd be a smash. Looks like he's gotten drastically better in that department the last 10 games or so.
You know, like Fontecchio is probably just going to be like the backup point guard, basically. Still big minutes to Jordan Clarkson's probably still at like 35, 36 minutes pretty easily. I'm finding a lot of trouble filling out the rest of this rotation.
Well, because there's just like these little, you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker. That's kind of a zero. You have Agbaji, who's never going to be in this rotation, it would seem. For me, I just think you get a lot of minutes going to Malik Beasley. I think even at 5,300, he's a guy you're going to want to get to. Jared Vanderbilt, I think that's a great call. Kelly Olynyk, sub 6K. I mean, everybody is in play. Not having Mike Conley is also very, very helpful, where there's a lot of ways these guards, the way the three can kind of work out. For me, it's just like, who else is capable of playing the 3 there in that spot. I know it's positionless basketball, but like Malik Beasley's got to be your starting 3, or you might get more minutes for Rudy Gay, or you get a Rudy Gay starting and then Taylor Horton-Tucker. I'm with you. I think Malik Beasley interesting. I really do like Taylor Horton-Tucker in tournaments.
Jordan Clarkson, 174 minutes with Mike Conley and Lauri Markkanen off this season, 29.95 usage rate so far.
That's fun.
Beasley's at 21. Taylor Horton-Tucker is at 23. I think that's interesting to see. I gave him 20 minutes. I don't know if I want to go a little bit more here. I think you certainly can.
I just did 22, and I was already just starting to get leaking in there. For me, it's just later exposure. You get more Pacers news. You get a little bit clearer idea of what's going on there. You're not passing up on Thomas Bryant. I will say I think the Lakers, the other pieces like the Lonnie Walkers, I think they're still in play, but they're less appealing now because if you get a Taylor Horton-Tucker starting, that is Yahtzee. If you get Malik Beasley starting, you're still feeling all right about it. But at 5,300, that's not nearly as appealing as a guy who's 2,100 less starting in that spot. So again, for DFS purposes, I would want THT. That would be awfully fun. For what I think is going to happen, Malik Beasley.
Yeah, I think I have my projections updated for these guys right now. I mean, 3,200 Taylor Horton-Tucker at 22 minutes, shooting guard, small forward. I don't want to like advocate aggressively for him, but that is a very interesting play and a later game pivot. I think Clarkson, Olynyk, Beasley, Sexton, and Vanderbilt, relative to salary, relative to each other, are very similar. I have them all between a 24 and 29% boom.
It's pretty identical.
Tough to separate. 30, dude, we have 3,600 people in here. That's pretty fun to see.
There's no what. No, I'm not even going to go down that route. Walker Kessler, how many minutes did you put him in for?
I have him in for 18.
I didn't change his minutes. That was what I wanted to know.
Yeah, I think you can conceivably go to 20 if you wanted to. There's just so many centers. You'd have to project him for a real staggering amount of minutes to matter.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be a little bit of a dumb question because he feels pretty unaffected by Markkanen.
The Claw wants to know Irving or Edwards for just overall points on DraftKings.
Overall points. I like Anthony Edwards more for tournaments. I did bet Kyrie Irving's 24 and a half point prop. He's playing 40 minutes. He's got almost a 28% usage there, even alongside Kevin Durant, second highest on that team. So Kyrie Irving points prop. Yay. He's pulling enough ownership there. I like Anthony Edwards a little bit more.
I agree. I think that answer is Anthony Edwards. Horton-Tucker or Thomas Bryant for DraftKings cash? Absolutely Thomas Bryant.
What? Here's the thing. Maybe, again, we're talking about scenarios. We're talking through a situation. I had no way just said that I liked Taylor Horton-Tucker more than that. Again, that's just extrapolating what I said. Thomas Bryant is a stone cold. Nothing could possibly happen in the next, other than he gets.
He could just not start.
He could just not start, and then you're gonna not. But even then, you're playing Thomas Bryant in cash.
Yeah, like if we knew that Taylor Horton-Tucker was starting right now, then he should be in your cash lineup as well, given that price and given that positionality.
Yep.
And I would like him more than Thomas Bryant at that point as well. But
I would too.
We cannot assume that right now. And the overwhelming assumption to the industry is that like the answer is Thomas Bryant.
And the overwhelming thing that I would want is both of them in cash if I knew they were both starting.
Correct.
You wouldn't have to decide between the two. You'd just play both.
Yeah, correct. All right. We should have been getting to forwards. It's 6:44.
Oh God.
We really do just zip through this show. Is that in my head?
No, time flies when you're having fun with your friends.
It's very true.
When you're forced to do stuff with Jordan Klein.
I have done things with Jordan Klein, and it was fun. I can't lie.
Oh, me too. Me too, baby.
I don't even want to know.
No, you don't.
I don't want to.
You don't. See you Saturday, big boy.
Jordan's telling us to shush, so apparently something dirty went down. I can't repeat it.
It's you just imagine it's that, and then it's better.
Big Money New Jersey hit us with the super chat. Pretty sizable super chat too. Thank you. He said, just finished unloading the Boyan money truck. Sorry, I'm late.
So good to see you. My God. Yesterday was was outrageous. Phone a friend, found every possible path I could to bet the over on 18.5 Bojan Bogdanovic. Because again, you get limited places. It's sad, but you figure it out. It was an absolute print fest. I was so happy. So guys, if you guys want to sign up, go to stokastic.com/Lindy. EL Insider, that gets you a free week if you guys want to check out the plays, because we're up many a unit here of late. It's been ridiculous. I got to go to France more often. That's the moral of the story.
I mean, that's the moral of that story, regardless of props, is you should go to France more often.
It's true. Would live if I could.
How great would it be if it was like really easy to move just regularly?
Oh, I mean, think about it too. How many people before planes got to experience Paris in all of its glory and everything? Like, it's one of the coolest cities. And now, like, imagine an upgrade the same way that people who didn't have planes then got planes. Imagine the upgrade to be able to like teleport to a place and just instantly be there and enjoy it and be everywhere on Earth. Because like traveling, I didn't do a lot of it whatsoever in my 20s. I was primarily in LA. It's hard to afford to do anything other than just live in LA at that point in time. But as I've started to travel more in my mid 30s, I think one of the most underrated parts of life is just experiencing other cultures and trying to just fit in some way, shape, or form, because then you're showing good manners. It's such a great way to live your life, to just be like, I will humbly ask for this coffee, sounding like an idiot, and we're going to have a laugh about it. And then you just get to enjoy people. Like, I don't know. I'm getting sentimental. I liked it.
I agree with you. I got nothing else to add.
What's your favorite place you've ever been? If I had a guess, if you had been to Amsterdam, I have a feeling you would say Amsterdam.
I haven't.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Like, it's so much of everything that I do is food based, and I find something that I crave everywhere that I go. On it, like New Orleans, probably.
Okay.
Just from the aspect of like being able to kind of have like multiple experiences.
Yeah.
I love the cuisine. The restaurant scene in New Orleans is exceptional. If you want to have a night, you can have a night. Like, but just like an architecture, French Quarter area, give me a beignet, walk on the streets, drink some drinks. Like, I'm able, there's a casino. So like you can check off a lot of the boxes that you want to check off in New Orleans. If we're talking
there's
like
multiple experiences. It's not like you're showing up in Napa and doing the one thing that you do the entire time you're in Napa.
Yeah. Napa, I get dragged to at this point in time. I don't need to go back for a while.
Yeah, it's so overrated.
Get Napa, Sonoma, whatever's going on over there. I'm going to tap out for like the next one or two times that the wife wants to go. I don't think she'll be mad.
It's cheaper to just send one of you.
It is. Corey Randall said, I know Thomas Bryant's the play, but what about Blake Griffin to be different on DraftKings?
Nope.
No, not today.
There was one slate one time that I brought up Blake Griffin, and he started the game in Fuego, and it still didn't matter. And that it was like a 3-gamer. Don't play bad plays on 11-game slates.
No, I just can't. I can't advocate for that today.
I don't know if I could do it in a turbo.
Could you get to him in Showdown?
I'd think about it. Got to be like 1,800 on DK.
Pluto Jace wants to know best power forward 5,200 or under on FanDuel. Guess that's more me, huh?
That is you. You have to do that one, I think. I'm sorry.
Shite. Let me refresh my table. 5,200.
Kyle Anderson. That's disturbing.
Oh, that
I wouldn't want to click on that name, but that's my highest projected over there.
Let me see. 5,200.
Why is nobody talking about Andrew Nembhard? Because we don't know if Tyrese Halliburton's back or yet. That would be why Mike Gray. We would obviously want to talk about him a lot.
Yeah. Jared Vanderbilt is 5,200 on the dot. I assume he's power forward eligible.
Oh, I didn't update my FanDuel. That would be why.
He is power forward eligible. He's 5,200 on the dot. My answer is going to be Jared Vanderbilt now that we've got that Lauri Markkanen news.
It's beautiful.
Boom. 634 likes. That's fun. 3,500 people now. That means that 2,900 people that are watching this at a minimum have not hit that like button yet. Ingrates, hit the thumbs up. What are you doing? Come on now.
Just berating the people. I'm sick. I'm sick. Be nice.
It doesn't cost any money to hit the thumbs up. I think we're giving good info out right now. Come on, guys. Help us out here. And plus,
hit the button, inbreds.
Not inbreds. I'm not talking about them being with their own family members.
That's what it sounded like to me.
Well, that's not what that is.
I know.
They are ingrate. The definition, an ungrateful person. I think I nailed it.
Yeah, you did. But then I took it up a level. Took it up a level.
You did. I don't know.
That's what I heard.
Became Game of Thrones pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We have 9 minutes to go until lock. We got an ownership update 1 minute ago, so I'm going to toss that into my sheet right now. How are you feeling? So who are some of your most exposed guys that we haven't talked about yet?
I just hit refresh, so this is going to take a second here.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys that we haven't talked about, we've talked about Thomas Bryant, right? Like we've discussed that makes sense. Have we talked about Pascal Siakam? I don't think we have yet.
No, not really.
The same way that you like taking shots on those guys. I understand Siakam is coming in with drastically more ownership, but for me, the big thing, 39 minutes against Boston. We knew that was more than likely coming, and now that it did, 42 is definitely on the table. It's definitely a spot where you could think about blowout, but even in like 12-point games, I mean, what does it have to be? Maybe a 20-point game in the last 6 minutes for him to miss that rotation. If they do beat him down, he's probably a good reason why they did it. He's 9,800. He's sub 10K for some of those ceiling pieces. And pretty sure he's been unbelievable all season long. North of a 1.4 fantasy point per minute guy. I get it. Everybody's back. Everybody's in action. But still, he's the highest raw point projection that I have on the Raptors by far. Pascal Siakam, definitely somebody I want in my builds.
I don't know what just happened to get me 100% Thomas Bryant on FanDuel at 4,300, but it shouldn't be happening.
Almost 100 on DK.
I don't even think I had him before this. So, he's a very different play on FanDuel. I'm just kidding that I didn't have him, but I didn't have him in 100% of lineups before this. So,
well, he's 4,300, and you only get the one center spot. Who are you getting to at center? Gobert?
I don't know. We're about to find out.
Oh Jesus, this will be fun.
Just thinking.
I legitimately have no idea what just caused that. Did we get like an ownership change? Did I paste? I think I pasted DraftKings ownership. Yeah, I pasted DraftKings ownership into FanDuel, and that changed made some changes for me. So
fun.
That's my issue. I was like, that is not at all what I was seeing before. What is happening here?
Somebody just asked me in my DM, who is somebody that could be a pivot off of Thomas Bryant? First of all, there's not a pivot, but if you made me pick somebody, Daniel Gafford's 3,400, and there's at least an opportunity in 20 minutes for him to do something there. Maybe Thomas Bryant plays 24, but even still, I don't want to try to make that. I have a couple lineups where they're together. I don't have any lineups where I'm saying I want to play Daniel Gafford over Thomas Bryant, who's an exponentially better play.
Who am I getting to at center is now a question that I can answer. Let me just click save here. And again, I'm playing 26 lineups today, so this is not my standard issue 150. I can't be scrambling like that on live before locks with 6 minutes to go. But if I look at my center exposure right now, that is going to be going to Kristaps Porzingis, Pascal Siakam, Clint Capella. They are the three primary guys. They're in 30% or more for me. That was in order, by the way. So Porzingis is at the top of the heap. Thomas Bryant is currently in 11% of my lineups. He is projected for 40-something% ownership on FanDuel. He is the guy that I'm getting away from a little bit here.
Okay.
And that's not to say that I don't think he's a good play or a good point per dollar play. That's just a lot of ownership for right now. And center is absolutely loaded. And we have value everywhere at this point in time. Yeah. So I'm not really searching for it at this point. Well, I have Jordan Poole in everything. That's one thing I could say.
Yeah. The one reason that I can talk myself, the problem is Thomas Bryant's a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy at 3,100 on DraftKings. That is that's
the
difficult for
$3,100
me.
price is a completely different situation.
Yeah, I have 90. Well, I had 92% of him. I'll see what I get here as I am putting more minutes in for Taylor Horton Tucker. I'm telling you, I'm just going to get to this guy. He's just showing up a lot as I've updated everything. So throwing that out there. But
I got to 20% on FanDuel, so he's in a chunk of my lineups at 3,700. We just got a question from Jake Lindland. Does the Jazz news make any Jazz core plays? I now have Jordan Clarkson in almost everything I'm doing on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I know that his price is stupidly high.
I still got 23% of him. I got 23% of him. I
know his FanDuel price?
Is it sub like 6K or something stupid?
6,100.
So dumb.
So
what are people?
He's in 88% of my lineups now.
Yeah, he's like a free square almost over there. Which is a weird thing to say about a guy in the mid range. But here's the thing: Jordan Clarkson likes himself and fancies himself a shooter. So there you go.
I am now just neutral on Clay. He was someone I had a lot more of earlier.
Same.
I'm very heavy on Poole. I'm very heavy on Kuminga. I'm very heavy on Jordan Clarkson. I'm even higher now on Ja Morant than I was before. 9,600 on FanDuel is just an incorrect price tag.
Can you get much higher?
All right, we got about 3.5 minutes to go before we get to lock. We're up to 800 likes, so I don't think chat liked the in-great comment. Worked out perfectly for us. Now I'm just going to ask because it's fun and we're close. Can we do 194 more before you and I get out of here at 7:30 and try to get that number up to 1,000?
Yeah,
I think that would be pretty cool. JC hit us with the super chat. I don't know which site this is, so that makes it really difficult to answer, but Oubre and Siakam or Zion and D'Angelo Russell?
The site matters a lot in that question.
On FanDuel, it's the first two for me. It's not close either.
Oubre, Siakam. I like Siakam. How much Oubre did I even get to? I got to a little bit of Oubre. I will go with the first one as well.
There we go.
For DK. Yeah, so DK FanDuel doesn't matter. I think both
That's
of
a
them work out
DK question, so that one's on you now.
Cool. First one, I'll take responsibility.
Perfect. Got to 850. Not the climb I was looking for. It's the climb.
I'm so glad you did it. I would have had to do it otherwise.
I shouldn't sing ever. It's bad. It's bad.
It is great for me, let me tell you.
Yeah, it's just never been my gimmick. Ever since my failure in karaoke once, I've basically never done it again.
Yeah. I'm a piano player, guitar player. Those are my strengths. I don't have the pipes.
I'm really good at press and play on a playlist.
It's fucking great talent.
I've never had any musical ability. Before anybody makes fun of me, I'll get out in front of this one and say that it wasn't really fun for me either. But I did play the trumpet for a year when I was in elementary school. Dog is not fond of me playing the trumpet. It was that bad. It made dogs bark for sure. It was a really unappealing trumpet playing. I feel really bad for my parents at the time. I was playing like hot cross buns and all that other nonsense. Just truly awful at it. But they said that if you played an instrument, there was a pizza party at the end of the year. So I just got a trumpet to go to a pizza party.
Oh man, Duke just hates trumpet. Is what we like. He does hate guitar. Every time I play guitar, he loses his mind. He could not stand that less.
Maybe it's you? No?
Definitely can't be. I'm perfect in practically every way.
Highest Devil with the super chat says, make me good at NBA DFS.
How much time you got?
How much time you got, buddy? I just join Stokastic.com. There's a 3-day free trial in the description of this video. Click that. Come on over. Projections, ownership, boom, bust. You can hop into Discord, ask more questions there. That is the way that you can become good at NBA DFS.
What am I doing in that dollar bill? It looked like I was doing like I don't even know. It was
you
very,
tell me,
very
man.
strange.
You took these pictures.
I know. I don't remember though, because I was so hungover, and I think I probably did some really cheesy things. Yeah, I probably was. We let it rip a little bit in Chicago. It was good times, but yeah, that flight home was not great. So Jordan Klein, you had to do it just for fun? Are you just doing all the play the not hits of Eric's pictures?
I got another DK question for you. Super chat. We only have, well, it's locked now. D'Angelo Russell and Giannis, or Ja and Anthony Edwards?
Ja.
It's D'Lo and Giannis for me, I think.
Oh, I just love. Let me see. Yeah, I didn't get very much Giannis. Not nearly as much as I was anticipating, which I think might be a mistake, but we shall see.
And we are.
I don't know. We only had one game lock, and I have like nothing other than like a share of Paul George. I have nothing else.
Let me see. Do I have anything in this game?
This is going to be like
I do. I have a lot of Kawhi, but obviously that's a different play.
Yeah, that was different. That was one thing that stood out. But 7,200 and DK, no thanks.
No. Yeah, 5,800 on FanDuel. You know, you get 28 minutes out of him against Orlando. Decent chance that he can drop, 40 plus if you need it. So
Orlando. If you could name what that is from, and SeaWorld and Disney and what's the other? I can't remember the last part of it. It's from Book of Mormon. Have you ever seen that? Oh, buddy.
That's not because I don't want to. I want to.
It is
for sure.
So incredible that I can't even tell you. It is. If you had to see one musical, everybody letting you know, Book of Mormon, the guys who created South Park, it is it. It is.
That would be the one that I would go see, and that would probably be the only one that I would go see.
And putt golfing. Thank you, Peter Nelson from South Dakota. That's somebody that I know in the chat there. Peter Nelson. I've had Peter, went to high school with. I've had my college assistant golf coach got first in a GPP yesterday, sent me the screenshot for over 5K. Nice. He's got the Stokastic avatar. So good shit. Shout out Patrick Datz, my guy.
Welcome to the Hall of Fame. Tweet that bad boy.
In the Hall of Fame.
I also ended up with 2 lineups of Markelle Fultz at 5K for the Magic. So that's what I have for this early one. Let's see how owned is Kawhi, actually. Kawhi Leonard, 19.8% owned in whatever random contest I just found on FanDuel that I am in. So I'm quite a bit over the field. Go Kawhi.
Connor McGinnity, The Nightman Cometh, is my favorite episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I went and had lunch at Sweet Salt, which is just down the street from me. Charlie Day was in there having lunch, just sitting right next to me. Didn't bother him, didn't take a picture, didn't do anything. You just let him live his life. But it was freaking, I heard the voice and then I saw him. It's like the most distinct voice on planet Earth. It's
in those situations, I try to give like a nod and a thumbs up or something. I don't, just like enjoy your dinner, man.
Yeah. He was having a convo with another actor of some kind. I recognized him from some stuff, but not as famous as Charlie Day. It was wild. But yeah, The Nightman Cometh is one of the greatest things about Tiny Boy, Little Boy, I Love You.
Day, man.
You do know it.
Oh, I'm a big Always Sunny guy. God. Come on, man.
Man, we're playing the hits now. This is good. This is good.
That is a show that we watch pretty regularly. We've been working our way down. So
pay the troll toll. Or pay the toll troll.
You can go to IMDb and look at all the episodes by rating, and we've been working our way back down from top to bottom. So it's been pretty good. Legarian Bridgewater wants your exposure on DraftKings, position by position. That is an outlandish request.
I was going to say, you want to see how the sausage made, baby? You want to see how it's made? All right. Jordan Poole.
Give him top 2 each position.
All right. Jordan Poole, Tyrese Halliburton. Something tells me that's going to change, but I'm front loading, expecting news, and I'm going to have plenty of time to maneuver. I also have 0% of this first game, so that's fun. Shooting guard, Jordan Poole, Talen Horton-Tucker tied with Lonnie Walker. My God, that's terrifying. Same thing, same two for small forward because of the dual eligibility. Jonathan
I wish I would have
Kuminga.
said this out loud. Juan Toscano Anderson starting for the Lakers.
What?
Schroeder, Walker, Reeves, JTA, and Bryant.
Oh, I didn't watch. I mean, we were talking about the Nightman Cometh
before. I just never talked about it. So it makes me sound like a turd. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
you're fine.
like it was
Dude,
important.
I cut you off literally 99,000 times more than you cut me off. So,
no.
Just
Juan Toscano Anderson is a 3K power forward on DraftKings. He is generally a 0.75 guy. He's another guy on the list of like guys that are decent plays. Like I don't know. What do you expect him to play? 22 minutes or something? Yeah. He's not a guy that plays a lot. He's no sort of priority or anything along those lines, but very clearly a guy that you can get to now.
Yeah. I will say this is a bigger zero on the floor than like what Troy Brown would be out there. It kind of makes me like Dennis Schroeder a little bit more.
By the way, I have Juan Toscano-Anderson as a 0.76 guy and Troy Brown as a 0.68 guy. So they are equally ass.
Well, one, I think, adds actual fantasy relevance from time to time from shooting a basketball, whereas the other one, Juan Toscano-Anderson, does not, from what I understand. Let me confirm. It's so hard to know unless you go back to Golden State because we have no sample size for JTA this season. I can tell you one thing. Greg
Troy
Ehrenberg,
Brown, 13%, 12%, 14% usage rates over the past 3 seasons. Neither of these dudes do anything.
Yeah, they suck. They're the same dude, but one's starting and one's not. So
yeah,
I think that makes, if you had Troy Brown, maybe you just get to a little Juan Toscano-Anderson. I do not want to do it though on this slate because it's 11 games.
Yeah.
And if you get Taylor Horton-Tucker starting, even if you don't, I like Taylor Horton-Tucker's ability to actually do things on a basketball floor from time to time. For this, you're just hoping that you get some kind of a minute surge and they get to 25 and that's enough for you. But I don't find it all that appealing to get to him.
Nets are starting their standard issue starting lineup. Hornets are starting the standard lineup. Zaire Williams is available to play. Jake LaRavia still out.
Yep, he's out.
Man. JTA. I mean, he's sort of like the only 4 that they have. That's sort of why I was expecting it to happen. They don't have anybody else that kind of fits that mold. And like, I'd be shocked if he closes. So.
Well, nice to watch an LBL show without Eric getting stressed out at Greg trolling him. Ditto. I'm okay. Well, you give me that little mix up. I can have Josh Engleman be my mistress. I'm okay with that.
I am nobody's mistress.
You're only number 1.
Damn straight. Everybody else in my life is someone else's mistress, or whatever.
If it were Love Actually, you're the one I buy the necklace for.
I just so speaking of that, obviously a big movie for part of my crew back home.
Okay.
I get the text that they're doing that. What was it? 20th anniversary?
Yep.
Am I getting the right year?
ABC.
Not that it matters. Yeah. I get the text that that's on and we start talking. And I was like, as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that Alan Rickman is absolutely in the right. And I don't begrudge him what he's doing at all.
Wait, what?
She has no business speaking to him. You gotta take your shot there. It shouldn't matter at all. He should be able to swing and miss. Now, if he you gotta take a poke. You just have to. He's like an old ugly dude, and she's smoking hot. You gotta. It shouldn't even matter.
She's got weird
teeth.
Even matter. She's got a great body, but like pretty weird teeth.
She is so ridiculously far out of his league. It's insane. Got to take a shot. So I'm finding look, this has nothing to do with my wife. I think she should do the opposite in this scenario as well. When we're 60 years old, if some smoking hot 25-year-old dude is like paying her some mind and buying her necklaces and stuff, by all means.
I learn more about you every day.
Look, it's just
learn more about you every day. Jordan Klein.
I'm not saying that you need to make this a permanent thing, but test drive the car, please.
I don't know. If I could be anybody from that movie, I'm definitely the British guy who goes to Wisconsin, runs into January Jones and the chick from 24 and who else?
Just Nadia from American Pie.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, Elizabeth.
I mean, I would prefer to take a spin with Keira Knightley.
She's 17 in that movie, though.
Yeah, her and the drummer
young
kid
dude
are like 4 years apart or something stupid, right?
Yep. It's absurd. She was like 17 when it was like 17 or 18 when she filmed Pirates of the Caribbean because her mom had to be on set. I remember hearing that. It's wild.
Yeah, it's I mean, obviously I want to be Colin Frissell or whatever the hell his name is and take all 3 gals with me. That's the A number 1. But like, I'm a Keira Knightley guy. So
I love America.
Table. Oh, okay. It's the same.
Yeah. Or I'd be the rock star dude because I'm sure he had a life. He probably had a life before it. If I could experience the life before it.
Yeah, I don't want to be him at that time.
Become a pop star and they give them to you for free.
Yeah. Like, I'm in for that part of his life. Great. But what about, do you want to be Hugh Grant in that movie?
I mean, he kind of takes advantage of his power, right? He's definitely the prime minister in the first week of work. And he's like, ooh, I need to get me a piece of that. And he shows up Billy Bob Thornton, basically says, oh, look at me. And then he, but I guess the thing that negates some of the weirdness of it is that he's like boyishly in love with like the dance thing and the excitement and whatever else. But like, for the most part, definitely taking advantage of your power. If that was Monica Lewinsky, we'd be having a different conversation.
Yeah, but so the only difference that I think, he's at least he's like willing to be like, no, I'm cool with this just being like a thing. Like, I'd like to date her. It's not like, hey, by the way, we should tell no one about this.
That's true.
Like, if he were trying to be sneaky about it, it'd be worse. I don't think he cared at all. He was just like interested in her. At some point in time, you just got to be able to date whoever you want.
Yeah.
Teddy Wayman says Keira Knightley is so fine. Completely agree. Mike with the super chat. How do you set your randomness levels for tournament lineups? I'm using my standard deviation times 5 divided by projection, but there has to be a more nuanced approach. Thanks. There can be. I don't think that there has to be. This is a giant question. I liken randomness and uniques to like how you like your steak cooked and whether you want salt and pepper and sauce or whatever on it. Like, some people want ketchup. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Depends on if you're using FC Pro randomness or classic randomness. Like, these are all very, very, very different questions. So what you want to do is know what your system creates and how your changes impact your lineups. As long as you are making a process for yourself and understand the relationship of what that creates in Fantasy Cruncher, that's more important than trying to do what somebody else does, because it depends on how many lineups you're generating, what kind of contest you're generating them for. Are you generating just 20 lineups for a 20 max, or are you generating 2,000 and parsing that down to a certain amount? There is no right or wrong way to do that. Sorry that I don't have a better answer.
I think that's a fantastic answer. To piggyback on it too, no two slates are identical. You're going to have different pricing. You're going to have different things. And you might not want to put it in the same way every single time. You might want to change. Well, okay.
Phrasing. Sometimes there's a different door.
Steve Buzzard, there is a wrong way for steak. Ketchup would be one of those, and well done. Those are both 100% correct takes. So don't put randomness at 555%. Don't put,
I've done it for baseball.
I've done it in a hurry where I'm like, give me something random in 5-mans. Yeah, I've done that before.
Usually, I don't know. President of the United States, Donald Trump, is a ketchup guy. And where does he ever go wrong?
Why, dude?
I'm saying.
I will say we have 2.4K people still hanging out here. Please don't.
They're about to go away now. I just kind of I got half of them clean out.
Oh man, Eric Trubb, super chat. Let's focus on that.
I mean, look, like, ketchup is certainly going to make a shitty steak better, but like, I don't want to put it on filet or like a good ribeye.
I would rather just use A1 in that scenario. If it was like a really bad steak and I had to make it work, might as well just go A1 ketchup. And I put ketchup with just about everything. Like, I'm a ketchup and eggs guy. I like ketchup and ketchup fries. I love it. Ketchup and eggs, especially omelets. Like, you go ham and cheese omelet with ketchup. Oh my God. Gross. The absolute nuts. It's so good. Disgusting. But I hate steak and ketchup. It's just.
I would never do that. Ever. Never have, never would. I love me some A1. That is just a sauce that is bred to taste good. There's a reason. We get anchovy and whatever the hell else that's going to be in it. Lots of MSG. I'm in for that stuff. But I also don't want to put that on a steak if I don't have to. But get out of here with that ketchup on eggs nonsense.
It's so good, dude. So good. Same Hawks starting lineup. Don't have to think about that. Young, Murray, Griffin, Johnson, Capella. Good.
I don't want to put any sauce on eggs. Hot sauce, maybe, but that's very thin at best.
You get one condiment for the rest of your life. What do you pick?
It's got to be mustard, right?
Oh, I would 100%.
No, are we counting
Chipotle
mayonnaise?
Tabasco? The Tabasco Chipotle. Oh, God. I would put that with everything forever.
I'm begging you, try better hot sauces.
No, that is, I mean, it's pretty damn good.
Give me Chipotle Cholula before I'm going to the Chipotle Tabasco.
I like Cholula.
You're talking about someone who has had a hot sauce subscription for years.
Oh, really?
Shows up quarterly. Yeah, I don't mess around.
Okay. Well, then the one chip challenge you had once upon a time, that must have
awful. A lot of people saying ranch should definitely get out more.
You should go for a run, probably.
Yeah. I don't think those people run anymore. Is my guess. I mean, like, mayo is exceptional for where it's going to be, but it's not going to be like a universal topping. To me, it's mustard.
Okay. If it wouldn't be ketchup, I would have to probably go towards, I'm probably still going to go towards Chipotle Tabasco. I use it on too much stuff. I like it a lot.
Go hunt down,
you tell me, what do I want?
Or an easily accessible other Chipotle version. Go check out Cholula's Chipotle version. I think it's pretty good. There are a couple others in the Chipotle range that I can steer you to.
Okay.
But I think the Cholula Chipotle is actually pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. I will try it out. I trust you.
What else do we have going on?
Not Indiana news, tell you that much.
I mean, I guess my answer should have been hot sauce, but I don't consider that like a condiment. That is just like a staple of my life at this point.
Okay. Then I would pick ketchup.
I have like 100 bottles downstairs.
Jesus.
Multiple shelves, 2 full shelves in a door on my fridge. Like, it's everywhere. It exists everywhere.
Good man.
All right. What else we got? So it is 7:17. Do you want to hit on some no house advantage props?
We should do that.
We absolutely should. We're going versus the house. Let's see. Charlotte, Brooklyn.
Charlemagne.
All right. I have a good one for you. Trae Young is currently sitting at 29.5 points today. Over under on Trae Young in the Garden. Does that narrative matter to you?
Oh my God. So you said 29.5?
Correct.
Because I bet him at 26.5. I took the over. Let's have this conversation because
Let's have it.
It was something that popped up on Twitter with DK and people with their narratives. And I am not a narrative-based person, even though I did say, hey, I'm not a narrative-based person, but Luka Doncic is playing outrageously well. He's very, very good in this current iteration of his team, but he's facing a Suns team without Chris Paul, and I just thought he was going to murder. He did, so much so that it was a blowout, and that did not help, even though still a guy that showed up in a lot of winning lineups, so that was nifty. But 29.5 is a pretty big discrepancy. That's like almost perfect for what I have. So I would be steering completely clear of that one. If it were the number at the books, 26.5 is what I've seen pretty much everywhere all day long. I like more on that, but this would be a stay away.
30.9.
You still have over of it.
Yeah. Give me
That's
the
lovely.
over.
Yeah, he was one of my locks from Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks last night because when you get the props out early, it's pretty easy. 26.5. He was minus 110. It's now juiced at, let me pull it up because I know it's changed drastically. Minus 135 over at DK on the over of 26.5 right now.
You said Yahtzee. Lindy's Leans, Likes, Locks last night. So you even went for more alliteration.
I did. I alliteration on alliteration on alliteration.
All right. We got a bunch of more super chats here. For a single entry on DraftKings, what Lakers would you prioritize?
For single entry, Thomas Bryant. And I don't think you have to prioritize any other Laker.
No. Thomas Bryant is a priority there.
Russell Westbrook's close, but I don't think he's an absolute must windmill slam, have to play him in single entry. In fact, I would probably gear away from him in single entry. He's a really good play. I have 43% of the man, but I would not call him a windmill slam for that.
All right. Rank Russ, Clay, and Clarkson for the DK 888.
Russ, Clay, Clarkson. Let me pull them up here. Guard. I could probably just sort on my highest owned. I have. Let's see. I'm going to go Clay. No, I'm going to go Clarkson, Clay, Russell for single entry.
Okay. And then 3v3, nothing worse. Halliburton, we can't even answer this. Halliburton, Poole, and Beasley, or
Can't
Durant, Reeves, and Poole. So that's not even a 3v3. Two of those guys, that's Poole on both sides. That's a 2v2.
Yeah, that's a
Oof. Halliburton,
empty
Beasley,
swimming
or
pool.
Durant and Reeves. Just play both of them.
Should play both of them. Reeves,
yeah.
was Reeves in that one?
Yeah, the answer is Halliburton and Beasley for sure.
Yeah.
Assuming Halliburton plays. But yeah, Poole on both
Correct.
sides of that one makes that a 2v2. That's the whole point of this. Evidently, per Josh Lloyd, doesn't mean that they're playing. Halliburton, Miles Turner, and Sticks are all listed as active. So that's
Interesting.
Jalen Smith, by the way.
Okay.
Doesn't mean they're playing, though, because they are thin on bodies. So
yeah, they could just sit and do nothing.
yes.
Are they warming up? Do we have boots on the ground? My parents aren't at the game tonight. That's frustrating. Normally, I could just send them a note. I've done that before a couple times where I'm like, are they warming up? Because they go to almost every Timberwolves game.
Really?
Yeah, they go to
That's fun.
probably 75%. They live in Sioux Falls, so it's like a 3.5 hour drive, but they got a place in Minneapolis. And
okay.
Yeah, so they stay up there quite a bit. And they go to every... This was the first Vikings game in like a year and a half that they hadn't been to. This last one against the Jets on Sunday. And then, yeah, they go to every Vikings and every Timberwolves game they possibly can. It's wild.
Interesting. When you were like, oh, they live in Sioux Falls, I was like, well, as if I have any concept of the distance.
Oh, it's like
it's
like a
away.
3.5 hour drive. Yeah. Yeah.
Which was then ridiculous to me until you were like, and they have a place in Minneapolis. I was like, all right, finally, some of this makes sense.
Yep. Cheater, Eric. Cheater. No, it's just if there's ever any news that you're waiting on from the Minnesota side, it's probably happened like once or twice in the last year and a half where that's been something that I've actually had to do, or 2.5 years. But I'll just be like, hey, are you at the game? Perfect. Is so-and-so warming up? Yes. Cool. Good to know.
Charles Moran, FanDuel GPP, last man in, Anderson or Vanderbilt? I assume that's Kyle Anderson and not Juan Toscano Anderson, but either way, my answer is Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Vanderbilt is a really good play now.
Yes. Yes, it is. We have 7 minutes to go before this one ends. I'm going to hit you with another prop, courtesy of No House Advantage, a place that you can sign up for using the link in the description of this video. That's the way to say this. And you can get up to $50 on your first deposit if you do that. They do not have any Lakers props up right now, which should not surprise anyone. However, I do want to hit you with this one. Fred VanVleet, over under 16.5 points against this lowly Lakers team.
I didn't hear you because somebody put Kessler starting into the chat. And since then, I was trying to find if Walker Kessler was indeed starting. And if he is not, I am sending you to the Shadow Realm forever.
Sexton, Clarkson, Beasley, Olynyk, Kessler.
He is. Wow.
Now, that is a lineup that has come out not from the place I trust the most. So we'll wait to see if they screwed it up. But if that is the case, that is something.
Yeah, we have to talk about it because Walker Kessler is a absolute jam. If that is the case.
Yeah.
That was what I was worried about. Like when we were talking about scenarios, I was like 18 minutes for Walker Kessler, but him starting, completely different situation. He is such a good fantasy performer. The block opportunity. Yeah, there it is. It came through. It's true.
All right. So
thank you, Tristan. Again, I really, really appreciate you. It's one of those things where it had no context, and I was just literally trying to find it online when he put it in there. Very curious how he ended up finding it. I did apologize, David Henry. Again, I was just saying, if it wasn't true and somebody put that in, I was going to ban you forever. But now I thank you.
All right. If I go to 24 minutes on Walker Kessler, just
it's going into everything.
And then I could very easily walk back Horton Tucker by 2 minutes. You know what? I'll leave that actually. Walk back Fontecchio. Walker Kessler in 24 minutes is someone that I would then have at 26.5 fantasy points on DraftKings at 3,700. Looks good. Center only. I still prefer Thomas Bryant
Same.
by like a lot.
Same. No Laurie, no Mike Conley.
Now, don't get me wrong. He's a very, very good play now because he's starting. I don't want to undersell Walker Kessler at this point. The only concern is just simply that there's a lot of centers, including one that is actually already better than him at a better price tag. That said, it's happening after lock, so he's just like naturally more interesting.
So the thing that changed the most for me is I'm updating usage. Jordan Clarkson is coming up in a lot more lineups for me over on DK now. Even at that number, he's got north of a 30% usage with no Laurie, no Mike Conley, and that completely makes sense. You don't have Taylor Horton Tucker in the starting lineup. You don't have, we don't have Malik Beasley, who I thought was the prime candidate to start there in that starting lineup. Jordan Clarkson 7,400, a really good play, even at 13% ownership right now.
Yeah, I need to give him
more.
I got to rerun this crunch now.
Yeah, me too. I sorry to cut you off and just it was just one of those things where if we got that news, I knew we needed to just get to it and start updating before we get to lock of the Lakers game.
That's a crazy lineup that I did not expect.
I didn't either, but
I mean,
I got 46% Walker Kessler.
So
which doesn't
we gotta pause here quickly.
Okay.
Do you think something's wrong with Jared Vanderbilt?
Oh shit! I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that is weird. Jared Vanderbilt started every single game this season. I think you should take Jared Vanderbilt out of your lineups more than likely. That is really weird.
I don't really know what to do with this, and that is kind of scary.
I think you take him out of your lineups right now, and then based on news coming in, because again, Jared Vanderbilt, like he becomes a tournament play at 5,100, but I would want to have the minutes. Like part of what's made him very fantasy viable has been the surge in the minutes and him staying out of foul trouble for the last month and a half. I don't think you need to be playing him coming off the bench. So like, I'm going to go under the impression that I don't need to play him at all right now. And that makes Taylor Horton Tucker really interesting still, because that's a guy that I kind of want to talk myself into a little bit anyway, but I'm just going to get to more of this game in general, and I'll adjust based on Indiana stuff here, what I need to do after lock. Or after lock of this.
Paul George game. Smashing right now, by the way.
I had a feeling.
But tonight going to be a good night? No.
I
don't think so.
Yeah,
either.
I ended up getting to 0 of him, even though I literally went out of my way because I was getting a lot. Oh shit! I just got an error on my crunch. What happened?
I'm getting to a lot of Walker Kessler now.
Yep, he's unavoidable now. You should get to a lot of them. It's going to be him and Thomas Bryant. You should get to lots of them at center.
I already wasn't getting to Thomas Bryant, so I actually like.
Well, on FanDuel, again, yeah. I'm playing him on DK, obviously.
Lineups are updated. Very, very interesting. I would be trying to walk back any Jared Vanderbilt at this point. I kind of get it. I think that he's still I do think that he's still going to be playing today. This is more of like a shape of the team sort of situation where like you can't have him also out there with Walker Kessler. Like the moment that you don't have the stretch moving forward, I think that you just bring him in and he's like the first guy off the bench. Yeah. But he certainly doesn't look the same as he did when he was starting. That's for sure.
I didn't even process when I looked at that because Kessler just jumped out. I didn't even process that he wasn't in it.
Yeah, that is. It took me a second too. That like I was just like, I feel like there's a name missing.
wild.
Bro, they talking about Walker Kessler like we really care. I mean, I just played an absolute shit ton of Walker Kessler on FanDuel. He's a 4K center that got the news that he's starting after lock, and people are jumping over themselves to get to Thomas Bryant. I don't know why those guys look all that different.
A lot of the answers play some of both. On DK, you're playing.
Yeah, that doesn't invalidate Thomas Bryant, but like
Yep.
you have to assume that not as many people are going to be getting to Walker Kessler at this
100%.
point. That's just for sure. Thomas Bryant's 4,300 and locks in 26 seconds ago.
Azubuike will split time. No, he won't. That'd be wild.
Azubuike?
Yeah, that you're out of your mind.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, you're out of your mind.
Azubuike's played 9 minutes recently.
Yeah. The only way that happens is if Jared Vanderbilt gets ruled out.
Right. Udoka Azubuike's probably not going to step on the floor if we don't see news on Vanderbilt. But that's a conversation for another day, man. We're at 7:30. This is a good one, man.
We had over 2,000 people the whole half hour. It was incredible. We had a lot of news that was coming down the pipeline too, but really nice you guys are hanging out. You guys made me feel better. That was nice.
There we go, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to No House Advantage for being the sponsor. Click all the links in the description of this video, whether that's going to be a 3-day free trial, a $50 deposit match bonus for No House Advantage, Bet MGM getting you $1,000 risk-free bet and 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. All sorts of deals out there in the description. But for now, we are going to get out of here. For Eric, I'm Josh. Peace.